Monster Synthesis Master Chapter 451. The mechanical pioneer repeatedly listened to the previously intercepted audio information in the laboratory of the mechanical giant, but could not analyze the problem. The communications between the Military Intelligence Department and Alongji are all under his supervision, and the telephone numbers of the Military Intelligence Department and Wuthering Castle are also monitored throughout. There is no problem with the content of these conversations. The mechanical pioneer coldly folded his hands on his chin, and his eyes were full of purple cold light, which made people shudder. The holographic image in front of me is repeating the course of the enemy and our army. After Shadu's large troops ate the bait, the logistics troops continued to advance to the Red Dragon's back without saying a word, insisting on delivering supplies. All the wolf cavalry and infantry troops retreated, simply and neatly. During this period, no communication signal was generated, and the enemies of the Red Dragon's back did not move surprisingly. Everything seemed to have been discussed early. This was the first question. Furthermore, when did the sand dunes have such high technology as a large defensive force field? The first-person video sent back through the data of the mechanical elders, as well as the pictures taken by the signal car, the war on the battlefield in front of the Crying Valley appeared in front of the mechanical pioneers. This large defensive force field in Shadu is firmly installed and has no problems during operation and load carrying. It is also operated by professionals depending on the level. There are also deterrence-class missiles, firepower concentration, and Sally's electromagnetic cluster. Such dense energy fell on the energy field and lasted for several minutes. It stands to reason that the defensive force field should have been exploded long ago. But until the end of the picture, the entire energy field remained motionless, and the energy supply was extremely abundant. This is what makes the mechanical pioneers most afraid. Although the large defensive force field is fierce, it is also unique in terms of energy consumption. There must be a large amount of abundant and high-power energy that can be supplemented at any time to maintain the operation of the energy field, especially the large scale of the energy field in the Weeping Valley, together with the Howling Castle, the Sacred Tree and the Sacred Wood City are all covered, and the energy required is higher. Now that such intensive artillery fire can't break the energy field of the Weeping Valley, it can only show one thing. In addition to the large defensive field, Shadu has also mastered the core technology New Energy. Although the mechanic pioneer only replayed the battle based on the video and battle records uploaded by many mechanic fanatics systems, but from the information in front of him and some calculations and inferences, he could get the data he wanted to know. The pattern of Shadu has not changed much in the past 30 years. The energy supply mainly depends on wind power, thermal power, and water power. Concentrate all the electric energy in the urban area to charge the large defensive force field. The volume of the urban area will emit a large amount of radiation at the moment of power failure and power on. These are all observable by the mechanical city, and the system does not have any data. No experimental nuclear explosions or sudden increases in radiation levels and electromagnetic signals were found, and nuclear research was restarted to eliminate sand. Excluding the above 2 points, the only possibility lies in new energy sources. Based on the color and density of the energy field generated by the large defensive force field, the mechanical pioneers calculated this kind of stable and reliable new energy supply. But this kind of technology has always belonged to Mechanic City. When did Shadu have this thing? The mechanical pioneer thought for a long time, and after various possible calculations in his mind, he finally locked a higher probability possibility, that is, the time Lincoln John sneaked into the mechanical city and stayed in the experimental building for a long time. Immediately, Dr. Zhao began to use the program to scan the storage equipment of the experimental building. After some operations, traces of data copy were found in the storage device. Before the post-war reconstruction, the harassment of the Legion, the Red Dragon's back incident, and the monitoring of communication signals, as well as the research and analysis of Link's weaknesses, the mechanical pioneers were unavailable, and the storage equipment in the experimental building was encrypted and protected. Thinking that Link would steal data from the laboratory building in a hurry, Looking at the densely packed data reading records on the holographic interface, almost one-third of the experimental plan data of the mechanical elders have been removed, and there are some blueprints that only exist in the demonstration stage. With the loss of core plan data and the sacrifices of thousands of mechanical fanatics, the mechanical pioneers felt for the first time the painful feeling. Even the war between the Mechatronics and the Free Federation forces 20 years ago did not force Dr. Zhao to this point. A feeling that hasn't appeared for a long time and is almost forgotten grows in the heart of the mechanical pioneer. This kind of insecurity, like duckweed, the fear secreted from the depths of his brain, reminded him of the feeling of escaping from the underground shelter of Shadu to the desert 40 years ago, exactly the same. In the past, even the coalition forces of the Free Federation, the mechanical pioneers were not afraid. The leading technology of the mechanic cult has made up for the disadvantages in numbers, and can fight back and forth with the Free Federation. Together with the elders of the Iron and Steel Council and their own deterrents, the Free Federation is in terror. But this time is different. Link once made a big fuss in the Mechanic City. His strength is almost equal to his own. There are also an endless stream of strange pets. These pets seem to be specially prepared for the mechanic sect, each of which restrains the machine. Department of Ability. Even if the mechanical pioneers used the ability to break down objects at the atomic level, they still failed to win Link. In the battle returned by the frontline video, there were not only the last appearance of the Dragon God, but also the powerful metal orangutan. The powerful spirit displayed can be eye-catching and put the fighting strength of the elders of the Iron Council in the front. The third sally slammed on the ground, and the scene was extremely brutal. If these are the factors that make mechanical pioneers jealous, then there is another most important issue: believers. In the past, when Alonso was in charge of Shadu, the grassroots were in chaos and the slums were starving. Many people began to divert their attention under this situation and began to believe in the gods of various sects, seeking spiritual support in the name of faith. And the spies hidden in the sand will use this to quietly preach the cult of mechanical gods, lure these bottom layers into the desert, and pursue the true mechanical immortality and the construction of a world of emptiness. For middle and high-level wealthy businessmen, they use unlimited lives and stay away from diseases as temptations to develop believers and absorb funds. Therefore, in the past few decades, there have been more and more mechanical fanatics appearing in the desert. The land that nourishes these fanatics is not the desert or the Gobi, but the chaotic city of sand. However, since Link came to power, the slums have been cleaned up and most of the spies in Shadu have been cleaned up, and the very few remaining spies have remained silent because of the severe situation. At the same time, we will vigorously guide the development of slum areas, form various industrial chains, employ grassroots people and people in slum areas, and eliminate poverty to ensure their livelihood. At the upper level, vigorously promote the fragrant pig feast and other health-improving food materials, which greatly hindered the development of the mechanical gods and believers. As a result, there have been only a few new believers in mechanicism in recent months. Lost fresh blood, this desperate frontline battle was ambushed again, with heavy losses. In this case, the Wasteland Gang also terminated the alliance agreement, which made it worse. Difficulty both internally and externally, the mechanical god sect has encountered unprecedented changes. As the pioneer of mechanical furor, Dr. Zhao is now in deep thought. Weeping Valley, Howling Castle. As far as Link is concerned, yesterday's victory was heartily and vividly, showing the momentum and demeanor of Shadu. Look at today's Waste Saturn Morning Post, the front page headline detailed reports on yesterday's battle. Of course, for abnormal grade pets such as King Kong and Dragon God, the media department directly omitted them from the spring and autumn period. No matter whether they are in photos or text, they are not found. The content of the newspaper focuses on 4 points. The first point is undoubtedly Steppenwolf. Link intends to portray the Steppenwolf into a big IP with the image of Saturn in the deserted Saturn, in order to open the market for the other two forces of the Free Federation. It's like opening up the upper circle market in Shadu with a pig feast during the Kylin Tang period. The report described in detail the strength of the wolf cavalry. 300 knights plus 4,000 aliens formed an invincible wolf cavalry force, which violently tore apart the mechanical legion. The second point is the technological process of Shadow, a large defensive force field. In the first battle yesterday, the Weeping Valley became the strongest place in Shadow. The strangers even jokingly called the southern gate of Shadow the South Gate, meaning that it is harder to reach this gate than to climb to the sky. Deterrence-level surface-to-surface missiles, countless anti-aircraft guns, bazookas, heavy machine guns, and even black technology such as mechanical elder electromagnetic clustering, all failed to break through the large defensive force field. 3 or 4 points are two typical characters for this battle. The first was Benjamin, the captain of the Wolf Cavalry. The picture of leading the charge and charging alone in the battle has infected many people. Facing tens of thousands of mechanical corps alone, the ancient heroic generals are so proud. After learning that he was the only son of Commander Mun, he was even more appraised as who is as brave as his father. Moreover, the report also stated that Benjamin was a young man a few months ago, and now abandoning his pen to vote for the military has positive educational and publicity significance. The second place is Li Ziqian, the soldier king of Shadow, who is far away in the Alongji. With only a dozen people and a bunch of foreigners guarding the Red Dragon's spine, facing the enemy's ravenous attack, they did not let the wind fall. As the bait of this operation, they successfully confused the enemy's judgment and made them finally make a desperate decision to attack the Weeping Valley. After reading the news on the first page of the Waste Saturn Morning Post, it was signed by Satu TV reporter Anna. Link put away the newspaper with satisfaction. Everything was the same as in his mind. Relying on the large defensive field and the advantages of Wolf Cavalry, successfully wiped out the main force of the desert forces, and paved the way for Li Ziqian's promotion. If you want to say something unexpected, it is the evolution of King Kong on the battlefield, and Benjamin's bravery on the battlefield. Link prepared 2 commissions and took a look. The first commission was on the transfer of Li Ziqian, captain of the Fox Hunting Special Forces, to the post of Chief of Staff of the Shadow Army. The second commission is on the Special Operations Battalion Commander Benjamin succeeding Fox Hunting Special Forces as captain. The former Shadow Army Commander Fernandez was released from the Lynx Cup, and the Army's power was in Link's hands. The promotion of Li Ziqian this time is considered to have shared some of the pressure for Link, and he can practice the army. In the second commission, the Fox Hunting Special Forces was formerly in charge of Commander Moon, and now from Captain Li to the Little Master, the soldiers will naturally not have any opinions. Link's influence in Shadow, the degree of centralization, and the degree of civic worship are the highest in Shadow history. In just half a year, Shadow has changed from a pronoun of chaos to powerful now, and even some people who are jealous and timid have used a derogatory term poor soldiers and military weapons. However, in Link's eyes, this word makes him more happy than powerful, which shows that Shadow has indeed ushered in full development in his hands, with changes visible to the naked eye from the inside out. The soldiers of Mujiang also developed a strong cohesion around the new leader. Therefore, the upper-class nobles, military, and civilians all raised their hands to welcome these 2 appointments. It's just that Benjamin is still on the front line of Red Dragon's back, and he can't get the commission by himself. Link considers for a moment, the mechanical gods that have already fought in this battle have shrunk their defenses, and coupled with the inability to replenish fresh blood in time, the mechanical gods will definitely stick to the defense during this time, and the defensive pressure of the Red Dragon's back will not be too much. In addition, it has been 3 days since Li Ziqian has been on the front line to guide the work, and all the construction plans have been arranged, and the players only need to complete the rest. Link took out the soundworm from the transparent small basin of the desk, put it on his ear, and lightly tapped and said, "Help me connect Alongji Plum Ziqian." The soundworm twisted into a ball and entered the cochlear mode. The 2 antennae trembled hard and began to work. After a while, the connection stabilized, and Link issued an order to Li Ziqian, leave a small number of staff on the front line to supervise the construction of foreigners. You and the rest can come back, and you should take over the new job. There is no newspaper on the front line, and no one has told Li Ziqian about the commission, so he knows nothing at the moment, and his tone is a little dazed. New job. Link sold it off, you'll know when you come back. Time flies, and it is the end of December in a blink of an eye. After Benjamin's return, www.mtlnovel.com link held a grand award ceremony for him and Benjamin, commending the soldiers who performed well in this battle. The merits of the Underground Research Center were given to Dr. Ludwig and Dave. As for Helen, because he was too young, he was specially taken care of by Link and was not exposed to the public. Although Helen's mechanical theory has reached a very deep level, the questions raised by Dr. Ludwig and Dave are no longer able to solve the puzzles. They shuttle between the Underground Research Center and the Data Center all day long, looking for answers by themselves. But Helen's own strength is not strong now, and Link did not push her to the front desk for the sake of insurance, which can be regarded as a kind of protection. As the news of the Battle of the Weeping Valley gradually spread, Link became famous in the First World War, and his reputation in the Waste Saturn was even higher, and shadow once again entered everyone's eyes. In the eyes of other forces, this battle established Link's dominance in the desert. The mechanical god cult and the Wasteland gang can be described as broken muscles and bones. In the next 1 or 2 years, they may not be able to regain their vitality. There are even many predictions that Link will pursue the victory and pursue the mechanical god cult and the Wasteland gang. The Lord of Dragon City Su Tianzhao, the head of Fei Augustine, the Emperor of the Desert Link. The title of Emperor is full of domineering, and Lin Kei's resolute behavior style is also very matched and complements each other. The name of the Emperor of the Desert was completely confirmed and recognized by all parties. But to everyone's surprise, Link didn't take advantage of the victory after the victory of the battle. Instead, he lived his own life and began to focus on the development of Shadow, without any intention of sending troops. Time came to the end of the month in a blink of an eye, and it was Link's first year in Destiny. On this memorable day, how can we not hold an internal annual meeting of the Lin Consortium? Monster Synthesis Master Chapter 452. As a Blue Star Traverser, how can the traditional craft of the annual meeting be lost? The middle and high-level members of the Lin Consortium, as well as hardcore military supporters, were all invited to Wuthering Castle. For the remaining members of the consortium with insufficient levels, Link also gave them red envelopes. The director of the think tank Penguin Penny, Mr. Afu, Stars, and Mr. Kong. Bob, Kieran Church, Alan, Daseki, Simon, the Hidden League, Tortoise, and the 4 brothers of the Renaissance, Freemasonry, Mina, Water Transport Gang and others, from Monster Security. Quinton from the Food Business, Fred from the Coliseum, Zhang Ming from the General Business, Nicole, Anna, and Huang Chuan from the Media Department. Dave and Helen from the Technology Department. Li Ziqian, Benjamin, and Ludwig of the Military. In addition, there are representatives of foreigners. Rejoice like the chasing wind, steal the cool man, bomb the chicken and cold front. The 4 were flattered by the invitation. Pirate Liang Ren works in the Lin's Consortium think tank, and barely counts as a middle-level man. Chasing the wind, a small Captain Ji Ziazi, how can he not be considered a middle level? In addition, there are Bombing Chicken and Lang Feng. Being able to be invited to participate in the annual meeting of the Lin Consortium highlights an outrageous one. However, in Link's view, the annual meeting is to find an excuse for public money to eat and drink, and to exchange feelings with everyone by the way. Of course, it is not necessarily the exchange of feelings, but it may also be the exchange of illness. At this moment, Link was standing on the balcony on the 2nd floor, and he saw Penguin Penny and the macaw fighting, nearby treasure hunters, mouse agents, rubber pythons, and curly baboons cheering, and the water arrow turtle standing in the distance. Be a referee. The project the 2 competed against turned out to be who sprayed the farthest. Now that the contest has reached the white-hot stage, Penguin picked up the kettle, drank tons and tons, and then took a sharp breath. A string of water jets slammed out and splashed onto the sand, clearly marking the location. Water Arrow Turtle glanced at the location and immediately opened his mouth and smiled, "Kami, Kami, Kami." The macaw glanced at it and snorted unconvincingly, "It's not just 2 meters and 3, let me break it easily." The macaw drinks water differently. It plunges directly into the bucket in front of it, leaning on the nostrils as big as sesame mung beans on the huge metal beak, and suddenly mentioning it, performing a parrot soaking up water, washing its mouth full, and then its head. Stretched out of the bucket, squirted into the distance with his mouth wide open. A ray of water arrow flew out, slamming into the sand in the distance, leaving a trace. Finally, the water arrow turtle announced that the macaw was slightly better and won the game. The surrounding pets cheered, and became lively again. What Link saw was shaking his head, and it turned out to be a patient exchange meeting. Penguin's usual wise image, today was actually given to him by a macaw. Several invited players were holding various snacks and chatting in the small pavilion in the corner of the garden. Because of Link, the relationship between the four is extraordinary. Because of the success of Langfeng's transfer to Special Forces, coupled with the electromagnetic Gauss sniper rifle built by Helen, his strength has improved by leaps and bounds. Bombing Chicken was also favored by several elders of the Moon Shadow Council because of the brother druid and the special relationship with Link. Now the Moon Shadow Council is basically calling it as an elite. "I remember all the things you laughed at me before, and now all of them are sour." Lang Feng raised his eyebrows and pointed to the three of them. The pirate Liang immediately raised his hand to clarify, "I was not there at the time, and I never laughed at you." Lang Feng glanced at it and said angrily, "Forget it." Zhu Feng said that when you watched the forum later, you didn't mention how brilliant the smile was. Pirate Liang immediately glared at the chasing wind beside him, but he didn't expect this guy to sell him like this. Chasing the Wind smiled, and shrugged helplessly, "To be honest, we can't blame us for thinking too much." He glanced back and didn't see Li Ziqian's figure, but still lowered his voice a little, "You ask yourself, after being valued by the leader-level NPC, in the camp in the middle of the night, the two men heard all kinds of weird calls, and every time you sweated profusely, you were carried out feebly, and you didn't change much. Miss you." Lang Feng's face blushed after rubbing, and the explanation was a little stuttered, "At that time, I hadn't been successfully transferred. I definitely can't tell you the content of the trial. If it is revealed in advance, I may not be the first to transfer." The Special Forces player. Bose Haji sighed, "But now you are very happy. Once you post the strategy forum, the suffering of this little half-month will be washed away and become the envy of everyone." "That's right. Who knows that the hard condition for the transfer of Special Forces is to fight with Captain Li 100 times. Although you have been abused 100 times, you are not at a loss. I thought my fighter was the thickest. I didn't expect the Special Forces to have a bug speciality. I want to transfer to Special Forces now. Steel in the army, the increased endurance and armor effect of the equipment are increased by 100%. If this specialty is given to me, combined with my new druid transfiguration, bear, how high is the blood volume and armor?" Bombing Chicken envy. Lang Feng was triumphant. The previous forum rumors that he had been given by NPC's grievances were swept away. "Humph, I am envious now, 100 times of bare-handed fights, not just talking, I've gotten to this day only after I've tried my best." The second floor of Howling Castle. There was a knock at the door. Anna was wearing a satin, knee-length dress and standing at the door with red wine. "Can I come in?" "Come in." Today's Anna is different from the past. She stepped on a pair of slender high heels and walked carefully to the balcony. Lin Ke assisted, "Why do you want to wear high heels today?" "The boss personally invited to attend the annual meeting. If you don't wear it more grandly, wouldn't it be a refutation of the boss's face?" Anna countered, choked. www.mtlnovel.com. Link lightly smiled and took a sip of red wine. Here they are all their own, don't need to be restrained. Anna opened her eyes wide. Really? When did I lie to you? With Link's reply, Anna bent down slightly and unbuttoned her high heels. Her white and slender legs did not shrink at all because she lost her high heels. 10 lush jade toes were white and tender and lovely. She took off her shoes and stepped barefoot on the ground. The elegant princess temperament suddenly turned into the liveliness of the elves. Anna's expression on her whole body was much more relaxed, and she let out a sullen breath. It's easy now. Then he blinked his eyes again, and the ancient spirit said strangely, can I ask you a question? Link motioned to Anna to ask questions. Why not just take advantage of the victory and chase to destroy the mechanical god cult? This is a good question. Link first complimented, and then replied in a serious manner, although the loss of the mechanical gods is not small, the lean camels are bigger than the horses, and their overall strength is still strong. The biggest problem is the mechanical pioneers. Personal strength is comparable to the entire army, and a rash attack will only give away the advantage. And now it's winter, the mechanic cult and the wasteland gang will be bothered by resources. I will wait for discord in their alliance. And this discord, it takes time to ferment. Anna nodded faintly. Then tomorrow is the new year, do you have any plans? There was a hint of expectation in her eyes after she finished speaking. Link shook the red wine glass and took a sip, with sourness and sweetness in his mouth. Tomorrow. I should meet an old friend who I have never met, and by the way, see how the gift I gave her last time. Monster Synthesis Master Chapter 453. Anna frowned slightly and caught the key point in Link's words, are you going out again? Well, I'll leave in the morning, and you can come back soon in the afternoon. What's wrong? Link asked curiously, mainly because it has been more than a month since the Death Quagmire delivery. Link is going to see his greening project. How is it going? A trace of panic flashed in Anna's eyes, and she pulled up her sideburns and said, no, I just think it's so busy on the first day of the new year, and I haven't rested. Link looked at the goby in the distance, and sighed lightly. Now that the internal worries have been resolved and the external worries have not yet been settled, the current situation of slight advantage has been created by catching up slowly. The higher you stand, the farther you look, and the more you think. The threat to the future and the future are like a spur that has been urging me to keep moving forward and becoming stronger. This was the first time Link expressed his heart. Although rebirth has brought him a lot of foresight advantages, as his own strength reaches a higher level, the things that need to be considered and the immediate crises are more complicated than in the previous life. The future versions are like the sword of Damocles hanging over his head, allowing Link to remain vigilant at all times, wanting to gain power beyond the version to face these crises calmly. Anna looked at Link sideways, her eyes tender and distressed. In the past, the Links she saw were resolute and sharp, and felt that his heart was as hard as iron on the outside. Through today's chat, she realized that from the slum all the way to where he is today, Link is always every step is silent and cautious, for fear that one step will be lost forever. Anna stretched out her hand involuntarily, trying to pat Link's back gently, but she hesitated again with her hand hanging in the air. After a battle between heaven and man, Anna retracted her hand and squeezed a smiley face and said, then wait for you to come back, let's find a time to go to the winter tour, anywhere. No problem, wait for me to look at the time when I come back. Link didn't doubt that he had him, thinking that when Donjo could go out to play with pets, exchange feelings, and observe what can be CP, fetters, by the way. Seeing Link's promise, a smile finally appeared on Anna's nervous face, like an iceberg snow lotus blooming in the cold, clean, and spotless. A word is a deal. Anna understood that what Link needed was not comfort, but company. At the end of the annual meeting, Link looked forward to the plan for the new year, unabashedly saying that the first plan for the new year is to eradicate the desert forces and bring the Gale Desert back to the embrace of the Sand Capital. This is called the Southern Plan. At the same time, the top priority for the coming year is to go out. How to go out is to vigorously develop the characteristics of shadow, with steppe wolves and all kinds of pets with specific needs as the core competitiveness, establish monster security company branch offices on the sites of other forces, and take the task of Platinum Hotel mode, the joint leasing model, as well as the Zhuangju banquet, security Sanbeo and other industries, will be introduced to the market together to gain a firm foothold. So starting from next year, you guys who are complaining about the pain in Shaduxian, you need to go out to open up the market and show your hands. All of them boast about going to Haikao. When the desert forces are cleaned up, it will be mules or horses. Pull it out for a stroll. Link's remarks made everyone laugh. Several middle-level members of the Monster Security Company have already competed with each other hostile. The eyes of Ellen, Simon, Old Turtle, and Mina exuded a strong willingness to compete, but Bob waved his hands frantically. Don't look at me, I still have to guard the 3 square acre of shadow, not mixed. The competition between you. Link glanced at everyone in the audience and looked at Penguin. Penny, how is the communication between Dragon City and the Ministry of Commerce of Fey? Hearing about the work, Penny instantly entered the state. The contract of intent has been signed, because half a month ago, the Crying Valley battle, I found an excuse to postpone it. As a result, after crying for the victory in the valley, the 2 parties stepped up and urged, fearing. We regret the temporary increase, and I will make it clear that the handover will begin in the next year. The combat effectiveness of the Steppenwolf cavalry is amazing, even the Mechanical God cult and the Wasteland gang directly shredded them. If you can get this powerful creature to form cavalry, you can definitely improve your combat effectiveness in the battles they encounter. Link nodded and expressed his understanding, then take the opportunity of docking with the Ministry of Commerce of Longcheng and Fei in the next year to call out the name of Monster Security Company, and use this opportunity to open branches to Longcheng and Fei, and can provide technical guidance. They certainly have no reason to refuse, and they dare not refuse. It is always easy to make people excited. The middle-level members of the Monster Security Company are looking eagerly at this moment, and they are gearing up to fight. Now Shadow is stable, with a bunch of great gods on top of his head, and the future of development is slim. Once you go out, you will be the leader of the branch, with the right to make decisions and meet new challenges. I'll just say so much, and I will encourage you all in the new year. After Link raised the glass, he drank the light wine in one mouthful. Everyone in the audience also picked up their wine glasses and drank them all. For the New Year's plans and prospects, Link can only say so much for the time being. But in fact, in terms of spreading, regaining the entire desert can only be counted as a work task in the first quarter of next year, not even a goal. Monster Security has a firm foothold in Fey and Dragon City, but it is just a pedal, not the ultimate goal. Link's real purpose is to find a reasonable excuse to get involved in the battle between Beasttide in Dragon City and Fey and Dark Forest. These 2 events are of great significance as a stepping stone to test the player's strength in version 1.0. In the process of solving the problems of Dragon City and Fey, Link's forces are constantly growing stronger. Only strong strength is the necessary condition to complete the hidden main task Mandala's Revenge. In addition to the above, Link has another important task, to get rid of the thorny issue of Shadow Platinum Hotel. Once the idea is generated, the system responds to Link. You have triggered the main city mission Shadow Platinum Hotel. Task reminder, the Platinum Hotel in Shadow has issued the most wanted warrant for you, and your mastery of Shadow has reached the highest level ever. Now it is time to remove this thorn in the eye and nail in the flesh. Note, this task is difficult, and it may trigger chain tasks and special plots, please be careful. Task reward, 500,000 experience, random purple materials, activate Epic Events Assassin Alliance. Link glanced at the task. This kind of reward no longer caused him to fluctuate, but the precautions in the task prompt aroused his interest. Link has probably a number of chain tasks and special plots in his mind. The Platinum Hotel is an alliance of assassins of the Waste Saturn, with power throughout the Waste Saturn, with extremely strong news circulation and strong organization. Although the Platinum Hotel in Shadow has issued the highest level of wanted for Link, since Link took office as the leader of Shadow, the Platinum Hotel has not dared to move at all. There is no action against Link, which is like a boring loss, or forget about this. The killers are also very close, no one dares to regard Link as the target of assassination. Coupled with the news that the forces in the desert have been hit hard, now Link's reputation has reached a new level in the Waste Saturn. For the first time, all the people of the Free Federation feel that the Sand has the hope of killing the mechanical gods and the Wasteland Gang and regaining the entire Gale Desert. At that time, there will be a chance to free up Dragon City and Fae to help the Freedom Federation return to peace. Link's strength has been connected with the air transport of Shadow and even the Free Federation, and the Platinum Hotel that issued the most wanted order can only embarrass himself. Link understood that once he started to uproot the Platinum Hotel in Shadow, he would be an enemy of the entire Platinum Hotel. But why does Link like being active and not passive? Instead of passively waiting for the killer who does not know when and where to appear, it is better to take the initiative to solve the problem from the source. Of course, these thoughts that sound horrifying to everyone, Link will not directly speak out. The road has to be taken step by step, and the meal has to be eaten one bite at a time. When the Lin Financial Group and Shadow continued to improve, looking back at the target that was shocking to the world, it would be much plainer. With the sound of the New Year's Eve bell in the Howling Castle on time, clusters of fireworks rose from Shenmue City, and bright fireworks bloomed over the sandy capital in the distance. People who were together exchanged Happy New Year. Anna, standing next to Link, said first, "Link, Happy New Year." She gave her first blessing for the new year. Immediately after Helen, the others. At the same time, another task on Link's system showed completion. Congratulations on completing the sea-level mission, the prey spotted by the wasteland. According to the dynamic evaluation, you have gained extremely high reputation during the duration of the mission, which greatly shocked the arrogance of the Wasteland Gang to chase you down and forced the Wasteland Gang to change its attitude towards your mission. This mission was rated as perfect. You gained 200,000 experience, 2 random green weapons, 1 random blue equipment. Link glanced at the mission. This mission was the first mission he got after crossing into Destiny, and it was now completed. April 13th. 42nd year of the Wasteland Calendar. December 31st, 42nd year of the Wasteland Calendar. Witnessed his journey from a slave to Shadow to become the Emperor of the Desert. As for the task rewards, they are all green weapons and blue equipment around level 20, which are completely useless to the current Link, but you can find a reason to reward players. Early morning. A person who only imagines but does not act will never experience the joy of harvesting fruits. In life, we must break out a way. Struggle has no end, and any time is a starting point. In the hot-blooded chicken soup of sunflower, Link ushered in a new day. Rubbing his head, Link took a long breath. "Hey, I am woken up by chicken soup every morning. I'm really afraid that I will have high uric acid and gout suddenly." After washing, Link changed into smart clothes for going out. With the experience of the last time, Link is ready to go to the quagmire of death this time. Because of the synthesis of dichromatic algae, which is a natural plant that restrains death quagmire and fog, Link also modified the gas mask by directly adding dichromatic algae to the purification layer, so that the gas mask has no time limit and can be used all the time. The bicolor algae in the purification layer can directly convert the grey mist into oxygen. After he was dressed neatly, he had sandwiches in one hand and milk in his hand. As soon as he walked to the living room of the castle, he saw an overhead camera chicken, diagonally across a small kettle, and a sullen macaw with its wings in his chest. "I said I won't go to death quagmire anymore, why call me?" The macaw was alive like an angry toad, its cheeks and belly puffed up. "I have put a lot of dichromatic algae in the quagmire of death, don't you want to go over and see the changes?" I have passed this time, but if you want to see the author of that alchemy note, don't you be curious." When the macaw heard about the alchemy notes, the persistence in his eyes was loosened. There are many weird and wonderful things in Grace's alchemy notes, and the alchemy that pays attention to equivalent exchange has always appeared as a profound and mysterious knowledge, and it has the same name as divination and psychic. "Then I will say yes, this time I will only go to the death quagmire, not the underground base." Macaws have long been fed up with all kinds of weird things in the gloomy underground base. After a while, all personnel assembled, and the Black Falcon transport helicopter was also in place. Link's qualitative nature this time is inspection and communication, so there are not many people with him, and he didn't call players. Link is the leader, the macaw is responsible for filming and translation, the King Kong is the security and thugs, the silver marching ants, the wall ants and the cobalt beetle are used to gather the bronze wall and iron sword on the fetters. Finally, a human navigation and Lucky the Star, the Blessed General, the walking backpack, the coffin carrier Afu. Half an hour later, when everyone flew over the death quagmire in a Black Falcon transport helicopter, Link was surprised to find that in the crater of the death quagmire, the forest area that was originally shrouded in grey fog, the concentration of the grey fog had been drastically reduced. A lot of. On the helicopter, you can even see the bustling green vegetation under the thin grey fog. The grey fog of this level in front of me is like a sandy city during the occasional air pollution period, covered with a faint layer of gas. This is still from a high-altitude perspective. If you enter the quagmire of death, the effect will only be lower, even harder to detect with the naked eye. But then, where Chiji was, there was still a thick grey mist in the sky, but it seemed to be more diluted than usual. Link entered the perspective of Insect Swarm Commander, and immediately saw the red land as the boundary, one side shining brightly, and the other side dim. The situation is already obvious. www.mtlnovel.com. For more than a month, dichroic algae, sunflowers, and psychedelic vines are composed of greenery fetters, which have already carried out a dimensional reduction blow on the death quagmire, except for the extremely high temperature. The red land suitable for plant survival, the rest of the dead quagmire has been completely occupied by green plants. According to the current scale and proportion, although plants cannot enter the terracotta, depending on the powerful transformation ability of dichromatic algae, sooner or later the grey fog of the dead quagmire will be converted into oxygen. It seems to draw the river to rule, but at best it is just chronic death. Link's mouth turned up. The strength of the greenery combination allowed him to win the bargaining chip with the never-met Eagle Witch Grace. The helicopter pilot turned around and asked, "General, are we still waiting outside the quagmire of death?" Link looked down at the death quagmire and shook his head and said, "No, this time you just find a place to stop in the forest below." The plane landed slowly on a flat and open area in the forest. Everything was as Link had expected. After landing, the thin layer of grey fog in the sky was no longer visible. In the woods, the ground and small ponds are full of dichromatic algae spreading and growing, and psychedelic vines are entangled in the trees, and some are moving like snakes. And not far away, Link vaguely heard the singing of sunflowers singing in unison. "The sun is shining in the sky, and the flower smiles at me." The little bird said early, "Why are you carrying a small school bag?" The macaw was completely dumbfounded and couldn't help scratching his head and poking Link. "What kind of magic did you do here? It feels like Death Quagmire has undergone a color revolution." Monster Synthesis Master Chapter 454. The macaw was dumbfounded. In just 1 month, the quagmire of death has gone from a place of deadly horror, filled with grey mist, to now full of life, and the air is full of sweetness. Link watched the earth-shaking changes in the quagmire of death and took off the gas mask. He didn't feel any discomfort in his body, not even an abnormal state. Dichromatic algae absorbs the grey fog in the forest and converts it into oxygen, creating an oxygen-rich environment in the forest. Because of the dense grey fog, the dead trees and diseased withered leaves that cannot be exposed to sunlight pass through this. The conditioning for a period of time is rejuvenated and lush. Upon seeing this, the macaw took off the gas mask, and the two nostrils on the metal beak expanded several times, greedily breathing the air of the quagmire of death. The macaw took a few breaths suddenly, and couldn't help feeling, the air here is a little better. Take a breath of energy, take 2 breaths, and breathe 3 breaths like a fairy. Link glanced at the exaggerated macaw, and said speechlessly, if you know, you are describing an oxygen-rich environment. If you don't know, you think you are advertising cigarettes. Link looked around. As the grey mist dissipated, the surrounding vision became clearer. The trees that had grown teeth and claws before, and because they regained sunlight and oxygen, they all looked more pleasing to the eye as if they had undergone cosmetic surgery. Link didn't go straight to Chidi to find the harpy, but followed the loud singing just now to find the sunflowers full of positive energy to understand the situation. After walking for a while, Link came to a flat area, which has been occupied by sunflowers, forming a small garden. And there is just a skylight between the canopies here, allowing the sun to spill directly on the ground, so it becomes the territory of sunflowers. And when Link walked to the flower garden, the sunflowers changed their singing just now, all slapping the leaves and hands, and their movements were neat and uniform. Welcome, welcome, warm welcome, welcome the host to the Wizard of Ounce for guidance. The Wizard of Ounce. Link twitched the corners of his mouth. It was indeed a creature made from books, and there was culture in his blood. This name is much better than Death Quagmire. Link glanced around and saw the largest sunflower among the sunflowers. Are you the captain here? Are you the first batch to be released? The roots of the sunflower with the biggest face and plate broke out of the soil, and then twisted and walked to Link. The boss has eyes like a torch. I am indeed the first batch that was originally released. Link asked, then tell me about your situation for more than a month, whether you have been hindered in the death quagmire. Before going to find the harpy, Link must first understand the current situation. Even though the forest is full of greenery now, it is also a war to some extent. The Green Revolution launched by Link took over half of the quagmire of death, and the harpy must have also discovered the thin mist, and it is impossible to be unresponsive. So Link needs to grasp the ins and outs of the next month, and then go to the harpy. Old Sunflower sighed, his eyes recalled, 1 month's experience, then it's a bit rich. Old Sunflower walked to the next stone and sat down, and said in a calm tone, let's start with the day of the release. We were thrown into the quagmire of death, and when we were in the air, we were blown away due to convection. I was miserable. When landing. After landing, with the help of the psychedelic vine, it quickly converged with the bicolor algae. At first, the environment of the death quagmire was harsh, the air was full of toxic gases, and a pile of grey matter was sprayed out with every breath, which smelled like second-hand smoke. Our 3 plants can only support each other in this unfamiliar place. Dichromatic algae reproduce hard every day to give us the oxygen of love. The psychedelic vine drives away the giant radiation spiders in the forest. I provide them with positive energy every day, cheer them up, and use sound to deter and disperse the threats in the forest. Soon our territory became bigger and bigger and the air quality got better and better, but because of this, we were caught by the snakes in the quagmire of death. The opponent came and went without a trace, and was able to fly. It seemed that he had mastered some terrible taboos, and took away many of our brothers. After that, he sent his minions to carry out large-scale encirclement and suppression of the forest, causing us heavy losses. However, as the saying goes, wildfires are endless, and spring breeze blows again. The enemy can destroy us physically, but it cannot destroy our spirit. We have experienced the days of hard work, but now we just start over again. Nothing can stop the arduous and hard-working Green Army. In just 5 days, we have developed larger and broader than before. And this time, a different strategy was adopted. First, we concentrated on creating a few oxygen-enriched spots. My honey and the others arsenic. The oxygen-enriched environment is a very toxic place for the enemy. Go out and occupy other places and establish other oxygen enrichment points. Using this method, he quickly regained the originally occupied territory and even expanded. This process has been repeated again and again: rebirth, destruction, rebirth, and destruction. Instead of being defeated, we have made the entire forest alive. The enemy tried to set off a forest fire, but it didn't take long for the fire to spread before we worked together to extinguish it. In addition, we have also learned to fight guerrillas. The psychedelic vines carry the dichromatic algae to move and supply oxygen. When the enemy finds it, we will drill holes and hide under the mud, and then come out after the enemy leaves. In the end, after a month of fighting wits, he has successfully driven the enemy out of the forest. The Wizard of Ounce is fully controlled by us, and the enemy dare not enter the country easily. However, because of geological reasons, the temperature of the scorched earth is too high. We tried to cross the scorched earth several times, but all ended in failure. In the end, we could only use the scorched earth as the boundary, and we could do our own things. However, we have arranged a large number of dichromatic algae near the border. Even if we can't get in, we must find a way to absorb the grey fog in the air and compress the enemy's living space. Old Sunflower's report was reasonably detailed, and Link could even think of the thrilling things that happened in the quagmire of death this month. Thanks for your hard work. The old Sunflower waved his hand and said, Master, please don't be so polite. It is our luck to have the opportunity to transform such an abandoned land into the Wizard of Ounce. Not all plants can have this experience and honor. We, the experiences of these days, will eventually become our wealth and our own strength. Boom, 3 sentences are not far from the old line, fighting chicken soup is okay. Link roughly figured out the current situation. According to Old Sunflower's description, the eagle which has been driven out of the forest, along with the giant radiant spider, and some other terrifying creatures, or was hanged to extinction by the psychedelic vine. Either flee to the scorched earth. The macaw on the side camera, the chicken on its head, faithfully recording the scene just now. With the sense of smell of the first video night, of Shadow, once this interview is announced, it will be hot. The old Sunflower has a lot of witty words. Just now, he sprinkled a lot of words and used it as an inspirational effect. Link entered the harpy for a moment and thought about it. If he were the Lord of the Grey Mist and the King of the Banshee, his sight would shrink by half because of some inconspicuous plants, and the grey mist content would gradually decrease, threatening his life. But these plants are very smart and it is difficult to eradicate them physically. Link could already imagine appearing on the harpies angrily and saying that he is the owner of those plants. How angry the other party would be. Well, adding the letter from the last release, the mocking effect is full. It seems that a fight after the meeting is inevitable. For Link, if the same thing happened to him, he would definitely fight first without saying anything. Comparing heart to heart, Link didn't think the harpy could talk to him calmly. This is also the reason why Link brought King Kong here. Last time we cried for the great victory in the valley, Link re-recognized King Kong and found that he was quite talented in admonishing. Leaving the sunflower garden, Link took King Kong, Macaw, and Afu all the way across the forest. The sun shines through the prosperous tree canopy, and the shadows of the trees on the ground are mottled. The environment has changed a lot and the ecology has also changed. Except for the ooze monster, Link did not see any other creatures along the way. Including the radiant spider that frightened Afu, he didn't even see the shadow. The reason why the ooze monster can survive and reproduce well is that it can replace the psychedelic vine and carry dichromatic algae to move, so it has become the Wizard of Ounce bus, the only designated darling. Soon, everyone came to the front line. Dichromatic algae cover the branches and trunks, and the needles are scattered everywhere, and the full power absorbs the surrounding grey mist and converts it into oxygen. Even in order to expand the area, many psychedelic vines were added and hung from the branches, allowing the bicolor algae to attach to the surface of the body, forming green curtains after another. And in the scorched red earth that is separated by the line of the Wizard of Ounce, there is no grass growing and the desert is boundless, and there are only rugged rocks. There is still a dense grey mist over the scorched earth, but the height of the grey mist is visible to the naked eye, and it is not as thin as last time. The macaw was carefully guarding the top of his head. The last time the claws appeared in the grey fog, it still remembered. The tall and majestic King Kong does not have any expressions. For elemental creatures made of metal, unless the fog is corrosive to metal, it will cause harm. Otherwise, in terms of simple toxicity, it can be completely exempted. Where are we going now? The Red Land is so big, the ghost knows where the harpy is. The macaw shot the chicken above its head and looked around, feeling that the Red Land has no special features except for the underground base in the rubble. Finding the owner of this place is even more difficult in the same place. After the macaw finished speaking, with an idea, he glanced at Afu beside him. This must be the reason why Link brought a foe here. As long as a foe is released, a little harpy will not be caught. No, I already know where the enemy is. Let's visit directly. Link spoke briskly. After learning about the whole month with Old Sunflower just now, he keenly caught the harpy and grabbed some psychedelic vines, bicolor algae, and sunflower. If Link's expectation is good, the harpy must have caught these three plants and went back to study, especially the ability of the dichromatic algae to absorb the grey mist, which has almost overcome the living environment of the death quagmire. Especially these plants that appeared overnight, never appeared before. Since he wanted to grab a living body to study, then Link could be in the locked position. Sure enough, in the insect swarm commander mode, Link saw a few scattered light spots deep in the scorched earth. The macaw was amazed, and hasn't released Afu yet. Does this know where the enemy is? Entering the scorched earth, Link quickened his pace and went straight to the location of the harpy. The grey mist hovered 2 meters in the air, and there were no more hanging people along the way. Link held his breath and jumped up. There were only ropes that had been taken apart in the grey fog. Other than that, it was empty, far from the treacherous and horror of the fog falling down last time. Afu shrank his neck and followed behind Link, his black and round eyes gazed everywhere. It seemed that the thrilling escape from the quagmire of death last time left a deep impression on him. The macaw followed behind with a horoscope. Although it could not see the situation in the grey fog, it did not worry about being attacked. After all, its height was not within the enemy's attack range. The only member of the team who is extremely calm is King Kong. After the evolution, King Kong's body size has increased slightly, and his height has exceeded the 2-meter mark. Walking straight on the ground, half of his head was submerged in the grey mist, only his nose and mouth were left outside. Hey, King Kong, can you still see the road like this? The macaw couldn't help asking. The visibility in the grey fog was extremely low, only a few meters. And King Kong's eyes are in the grey mist, how can he discern the path under his feet? King Kong bends down slightly, revealing a pair of golden eyes. I have fiery eyes and golden eyes, which can break the evil and misty. Scold. As everyone was advancing, there was a bursting sound like cloth cracking in the grey mist, followed by a piercing shriek that pierced the eardrum, rolling in the grey mist. The macaw and Afu covered their ears for the first time, with painful expressions. A prompt flashes on the Link system interface. You are under a mental attack, your energy attribute is greater than 120 points, resist some damage, and the subsequent mental attack damage is reduced by 60%. You are attacked by Fatal Scream and lose 400 HP. Good guy, this is getting hurt before the enemy's position is locked. www.mentalnovel.com. Resist 60% of the damage, all lost 400 points of health, a Fatal Scream panel damage up to 1000 points, worthy of LV 40+, leader. The next second, King Kong clasped his hands together, and the Sanskrit sound rolled in his mouth. As soon as the heart-clearing mantra came out and wrapped everyone in a light green protective field formed by Sanskrit, the macaw and a foal were sweating profusely and were a little weak in spirit. The macaw gasped, but when he raised his head, he immediately saw a sarcoma monster in the distance, tens of meters tall, and his body was trembling with fat during the action, and the stone was flying everywhere, like a chariot. Rammed up. Oh, Link, I think this big guy needs to be focused on guarding. The macaw suggested as he drew back. Link glanced at the sarcoma deformity monster that was accelerating the charge, and patted the King Kong who was chanting, "The king is against the king and the general, this guy is for you." King Kong looked into the distance and glanced at the sarcoma deformed monster, a sharp glow flashed in his eyes. "Okay, no problem, this is a lot of merit, broken soul, chaos, and dementia, I can feel it tearing the pain of cracking, Buddha crossing the world, it's time to help him relieve the pain." Monster Synthesis Master Chapter 455. Wind and thunder bursts in the grey mist, and the originally calm and wave-like grey mist layer is now like a low-pressure cloud on the Great Plain, with turbulent waves surging. The deadly scream had ceased, and Link tried his best to capture the position of the harpy in the grey mist with his six senses. After turning on the Emperor Watching Chi technique, all the gas and energy flowing in the grey mist came into my eyes. Link looked up, but didn't find the location of the harpy. There was turbulence in the grey mist, and there was no trace of the harpy. In the state of the Emperor's vision, Link's field of vision is also wider, and the flow of energy in all states can be seen clearly. The grey mist in front of me is like a dark cloud before the rainstorm, violent and disorderly. Just when Link was suspicious, King Kong on the other side was already facing the sarcoma monster. At first glance, this sarcoma monster is an alchemy product. Unlike the distortion monsters connected through connective tissue in the underground base, it has obtained an unusually large body and strength through the equivalent exchange principle. In front of the sarcoma deformed monster with a height of more than 2 meters, the King Kong instantly became insignificant, even reaching the opponent's knee. Wherever the sarcoma monster passed, the grey mist evaded, forming a line of sky fissure. King Kong walked steadfastly, looking at the sarcoma monster rushing like a meatball chariot, and sighed, "Donor, please stay." The sarcoma monster only obeys the orders of the creator harpy. King Kong naturally ignores his words, and even accelerates faster, as if there are signs of a huge monster destroying and rushing towards Mount Tai. King Kong sighed slightly, "The opportunity has already been given to you, but your path is narrowed." After that, he slapped both palms suddenly, and the golden light bloomed all over his body, bursting with strong energy. The grey mist above King Kong's head was propped up by the huge repulsion, like a shock wave after the explosion, forming a vacuum zone. The scorched earth of the scorched red land sees the sun, and this land finally shines with sunshine again after decades. The silver metal skin of King Kong instantly turned golden, and his body quickly rose up in the state of Arhat's fury. When the sarcoma monster rushed over, it just completed the increase in size, which was comparable. The two giant beasts collided, the air trembled, and the sound of Buddha circulated around the beam. The crimson hard ground exploded countless cracks and explosion patterns, as if a spider web radiated around. With a little movement between the two beasts, the grey mist that can be stirred up rolls, and the momentum is terrifying. Swish! Just when Link was distracted, two dark arrows made of grey mist were shot from the top of his head, and the vicious curse contained in it was felt by just a glance. Link's figure flickered, dexterously avoiding two dark arrows, and continued to look into the grey mist in the state of Emperor Watching Chi technique, but did not see the harpy. Link frowned slightly. Last time, he had a hand with the harpy flintstone. He got Grace's alchemy notes and saw that the opponent was an LV40+, leader, level NPC. But Link found that he was still underestimating the opponent, but this invisibility-like skill made him helpless. Shoo! Link blew his whistle, and the silver wall ants in his sleeves flew out, forming 3 whistle arrows, dancing in the grey mist. The breath of the grey mist was still the same, and Link watched the changes in these airflows while being vigilant. In his previous life, Link did not see any information about the harpy on the forum. The current understanding of Grace is limited to the alchemy notes and the information and data that he saw last time. But Link had vaguely guessed the reason for the invisibility of the harpy. Suddenly, a brilliant light flashed in front of Link, and he found an unusual breath in the grey mist. The 3 whistle arrows immediately caught up with the grey mist. At the same time, Link's speed soared, and the dagger flashed out of his hand, and his figure appeared in the grey mist, slashing against a wisp of grey mist. The wandering grey mist immediately revealed its original form, condensing into a harpy entity. The harpy has a pair of horrible and terrifying vertical pupils, her eyes are full of strong anger, and the long white teeth exposed at the corners of her mouth, as if to eat her flesh. "How did you find me?" The harpy saw Link again, still suspicious in her anger. "My own trick grey mist walker can completely mist the body, which is the ability obtained after binding the grey mist to his own destiny. It can be said that the grey mist of the death quagmire is the harpy." Hidden in the grey fog, he just shot a dark arrow, and Link locked the thunder to shoot, and he was terrified. The flashing dagger appeared at the inevitable tricky angle of the harpy, while Link held the box pistol and shot in the neutral position. The harpy's body turned into grey mist again, and it happened that the 11th element bullet of the box pistol shot out, condensing a ball of electric light in the grey mist. Zi. A strong electric light enveloped a cloud of grey fog, and after a while, the harpy fell through the fog and fell into a state of electric shock for a second. "Although your disguise is fake, you still have weaknesses. Want to know?" "I won't tell you." Lin Keseo kept talking, and at the same time, people had appeared behind the harpy, a black and hard cylinder pressed against the back of the harpy still felt a cold neck, and the cold dagger was also used. At the neck. "I advise you not to move, you have no eyes." The harpy really stopped moving when he heard this, and asked, "You came to see my joke this time, right?" The harpy thought of the letter that Link dropped last time. There was a sentence in it. "Maybe you still don't understand the meaning of this letter, but you will soon discover the changes in the death quagmire." At that time, after seeing the letter, she was really puzzled, but after a few days, she felt that the concentration of grey fog was reduced, and the noise of chattering sunflowers came every day in the forest, making the harpy feel the physical and spiritual double torture. After that, the harpy was fighting against these green plants every day, but no matter what method she used, those green plants could be reborn after destruction and become stronger. The harpy who claimed to be the master of grey mist demon, for the first time felt the frustration of being hit by a tiny creature. "No, do you remember the letter I delivered last time? I'm here to discuss cooperation with you this time." Grace sneered and looked at the 2 giant beasts fighting in the distance, dusty and trembling at every turn, and it was quite a posture to overturn the entire Chidi. "You call this talk about cooperation?" Grace did not hesitate to use a mental shock on Link just after the voice. The corners of the raised mouth were just halfway up, and the smile instantly solidified. Once any creature was hit by her own mental shock, she would definitely become sluggish and sluggish. It was this way that she captured many mutant creatures in the quagmire of death and used them for alchemy research. An unfavorable move was actually ineffective against Link at this moment, which shocked Grace. "You Birdman doesn't speak martial ethics. I said it was to talk about cooperation. You actually did a sneak attack." If it wasn't for Link to know that part of Grace's skills had been prepared early, he opened the crown of mind and held it. "Then there is a mental shock, otherwise you will definitely suffer a big loss." Grace disappeared from where she was, and appeared 10 meters away in the next second, with resentment and vigilance in her eyes. She wouldn't believe these bullshits from Link, he didn't know how she came over this month. The inexhaustible dichroic algae continuously convert the grey fog into oxygen, and the total amount of the entire grey fog is drastically reduced. The psychedelic vine reproduces very fast, and the place where it appears is hard to prevent. Some time ago, Grace went to the forest for crusade. If it weren't for her ability to move instantaneously, she would be shackled to death by the psychedelic vine. The most annoying thing is the sunflower. This kind of seemingly harmless creatures start to recite all kinds of soul chicken soup and beat chicken blood every morning. Because Grace and the grey mist are closely connected, so wherever there is grey mist, there is the psychology of Grace's expansion. The grey mist is like Grace's neural network. So even in the nest more than 10 kilometers away, Grace can still hear the slogan of sunflowers every day. Imagine the death quagmire and the grey mist. Even if the dichroic algae in the forest replaces the grey mist with oxygen, there is still an extremely thin amount that provides Grace with perception. With the fetters of greenery, sunflowers multiply at an alarming rate in 1 month, and the number of death quagmire is less than 10,000. Imagine waking up every morning, and tens of thousands of sunflowers are licking blood in your ears to talk about positive energy. The key point is that Grace has not been able to shield this perception, so she can only bear it abruptly. The lord of the dignified grey mist, the king of the banshee, was forced by a group of sunflowers to become a resent woman. Killing is not clean, and there is no way to block it. For a whole month, Grace was a little nervous, and she even needed to take the alchemy product dreaming medicine every night to sleep peacefully. In the end, Grace was forced to have no choice but to get 3 plant samples for research and study methods to eliminate countermeasures. Seeing Link, thinking of the letter, and what happened to him this month, no one can stop Grace from killing Link's heart. In just a few tens of seconds, Grace showed great abilities. Deadly Scream, Grey Mist Walker, Mental Shock, Teleportation. As a boss-level boss with LV40+, Grace's abilities are all powerful abilities. Combined with the settings of the alchemist, the software and hardware strengths are among the top bosses Link has seen. I came with sincerity this time. Do you remember the content of the last letter? I said that death quagmire is not a gift for you, but a kind of imprisonment. Grace's voice was cold. So you put these plants in to show off in front of me, tell me that you have the ability to absorb the grey mist, and want to control me with this restraint. Grace flapped her wings, and there was a roaring wind and thunder in the grey mist of the sky. There were dozens of hundreds of harpies in the grey fog, not as big as Grace, but each with sharp teeth, and green eyes full of hostility. Some harpies hold iron spears, some gather wind elements with both hands, and some are lightning elements. Only waiting for Grace to give an order, she shot Link. Link didn't care, he didn't even see it. He took out a box of dichromatic algae and unfolded it in his hand. Dichromatic algae has more than just the ability to absorb grey mist. The color of the 2-color algae in his hand changed from green to grey, and immediately began to absorb the oxygen in the air, and soon a few wisps of grey smoke rose. Grace's hatred eyes were instantly dull. She perceives the new grey mist in the air, and the generated grey mist establishes a connection with her. This is. When Grace's expression changed from hideous to surprised, Link knew that today's negotiations were stable. Although he didn't know much about Grace's information, he clearly grasped the other party's greatest needs. Grace's attitude towards the grey mist is extremely complicated. On the one hand, the grey mist almost killed her. In order to survive, she connected her soul with the eagle. After the equivalent substitution of alchemy, the eagle body family was artificially created and merged with the grey mist. Become the lord of the grey mist. On the other hand, due to the death quagmire, the grey fog can only be deposited in this huge crater. Once it reaches the outside world, it will soon be diluted and dissipated. Instead, the grey fog has become a shackle that restricts Grace's actions, leaving her in the quagmire of death forever. Here, she is both a queen and a prisoner. But the dichroic algae in Link's hands seemed to break this iron law. This is dichromatic algae. I think you have the ability to convert grey fog into oxygen. This ability is two-way, it can also convert oxygen into grey mist. I think you should know the role of this ability. Grace narrowed her expression, waved her wings, and signaled that all the harpies in the grey mist were released from the offensive state. The price, what do you want to get from it? Grace is a master alchemist, and alchemy emphasizes one point from beginning to end the principle of equivalent exchange. Link came back and forth twice, and even brought out the dichromate that would allow her to regain her freedom. Link was also very simple and said, I want you. Or, I need a master alchemist. Now there are many professionals around Link. 3-line Mechanical Master Dave, Future Mechanical Helen, Special Forces King Li Ziqian, and Killer King John. These are the mainstream professional talents of Waste Saturn. Alchemy, something between magic and science. www.mtlnovel.com, is very common on Victoria Star, but the Waste Saturn, who specializes in martial arts and machinery, rarely sees alchemy. Grandmaster. Now there is a master alchemist, or the Queen of the Harpy, who is good at the supernatural spirit system. Such a rare combination makes Grace unique. Is it all? Grace couldn't help but ask. If Link's introduction to the pattern of the Waste Saturn is true, then choosing to cooperate with the Supreme Leader of Shadow will not lose money for Grace. And when she goes outside, she can study the dichromatic algae, and perhaps discover the mystery of the 2 transformations of dichromatic algae. As long as she mastered this mystery, she would not be controlled by Link. The corners of Link's mouth raised slightly, and Grace had fallen into the words he constructed step by step. Actually, I'm also an alchemist. The main direction of my attack happens to be the transformation of life. I need the help of the experts and top alchemists. Link shrugged helplessly, but you know, on this planet, I think it is already difficult to find an alchemist, let alone a master alchemist. Grace frowned slightly. If she believed Link's previous words, then the words just now made her fall into doubt again. Is it such a coincidence for an alchemist who is good at life transformation? Although I don't know how this 2-color algae came from, I doubt what you said. Unless, you can prove that you are really an alchemist who is good at life transformation. Link rolled up his sleeves and spread his palms. The principle of equivalent exchange, I need life and materials. Grace neighed at the grey fog, and Link saw a harpy flying away. Fish, got the bait. Monster Synthesis Master Chapter 456. Grace doubted Link's statement. However, during the previous research on the 3 plants that Link put in, Grace discovered what makes these plants unique. After the quagmire of death was subjected to nuclear strikes and pollution from experimental agents in underground bases, a series of mutations also occurred, but no plant mutation has the same targeted effect as dichromatic algae, psychedelic vine, and sunflower. Dichromatic algae has the characteristic of absorbing grey fog, the psychedelic vine itself has a powerful binding effect, and also adds hallucinogenicity, the sunflower's mental attack, noise pollution, immunity to mental attack, etc., each has its own characteristics and obvious Link did it deliberately. These specific examples all show that these plants are specially prepared for her by Link. The ability to allow creatures to gain new abilities is indeed an operation that alchemists who specialize in life transformation are good at. But Grace can only believe this kind of thing by witnessing it with her own eyes, so she ordered the harpy to go back and prepare the creatures and materials. The 2 sides suddenly fell into a stalemate, and neither of them let go of the fight while waiting for the creatures and materials. The battle between King Kong and the sarcoma monster in the distance continued. The body of the sarcoma monster was filled with a lot of fat. King Kong's powerful force hit the body. The fat of the sarcoma monster trembled back and forth like jelly, dissipating the force invisible. At the same time, the huge sarcoma monster will produce corrosive pus from time to time, and the corrupt liquid containing evil energy can even melt the bodyguard Buddha light. Amitabha, since the communication fails, then I can only use force. Dare to love that just now, King Kong and the sarcoma monster had a melee fight, is it considered writing? King Kong blasted out with a punch, the Buddha's light surged, and the Sanskrit sound swirled and dissipated from the arm. King Kong jumped a step, his hands twisted the flower knot to gather light on the Buddha's top seal, and it happened that a ray of sunlight sprinkled on King Kong from the middle of the grey mist that was broken from the sky. The golden light was all over his body. The hands and the back of the head were solid. The Buddha's light stays for a long time, like a and Buddha. Seeing this, the macaw hiding in the distance immediately adjusted the camera chicken's head, switching the lens from the confrontation between Link and the harpy to King Kong and the alchemy sarcoma monster. The sarcoma monster seemed to feel the coercive breath, and his stomach made a thumping sound. After a while, the deformed big mouth suddenly vomited, spitting out a cloud of grey-green putrefaction. The golden Buddha seal at the fingertips of the King Kong condensed a group of golden Buddha anger, which suddenly burned out of the body. The putrefaction began to burn after contacting the flame, turning into a mass of ashes for a moment. Under the blessing of Arhat's wrath, golden Buddha lantern was so angry that it burned everything under the anger. Even the grey fog in the sky burned under the ring-shaped spread of anger, like falling a few days ago. The burning clouds, billowing with Zhuge Wanjun, were decomposed and dissipated in the blazing heat, revealing the light of sunny days. The Buddha lamp's anger stuck to the sarcoma monster, as if it had encountered a flame of tar, and it burned more fiercely. The sarcoma monster wailed bitterly, the body on fire gradually became ashes, and black embers flew all over the sky. The sarcoma monster struggled for a while, swelling from the atrium, and after a while, all kinds of filth rushed out of the entire right body, completely separated from the flame. The Buddha's anger and flames on the ground burned all the filth and was dying. The sarcoma monster let out a tragic whimper, and only half pulled himself to the ground. The putrefaction flowing out of the body gradually condensed into a scab, and on this basis the body of the sarcoma monster gradually began to repair and grow and restore its original appearance. Alchemy creatures that can repair themselves. Link's eyes lit up. This thing is much stronger than the aberration that relies on connective tissue in the underground base. But the cost of repairing growth is certainly greater. Link glanced at Grace and noticed that her face was indeed darker again. The corrupted sarcoma monster is a product of an alchemy curse and is classified as a dark creature, and is naturally restrained by the positive energy of the Buddha's light and the holy light. The attack of the sarcoma monster is indefensible, and the defense is also top-notch, but after the King Kong used the Tathagata Palm Golden Top Buddha Light, it was directly broken in half, and the damage and repair costs were definitely not low. Link also accepted it as soon as he saw it, and said, "King Kong, come back, let him go first." King Kong wanted to take advantage of the victory, but when he heard Link's words, his body was slightly startled and suddenly realized. "I understand. Everything in the world has a beginning and an end, and the cycle of karma is unhappy. The boss made me stop to prevent me from getting karma, kill this freak, and his mother will definitely come to me for revenge. There are other causes and effects added to the body, so repetitive and endless. But as long as I let go of it, there will be no endless loop, and countless causes and effects are avoided. Great goodness!" Hearing the boss's glance, his ears shook his ears, as if Hong Zhong de Lu Masai suddenly opened. King Kong looked serious and folded his hands together. "When is the wrongdoing reported? I will let your mother go first today. I hope you can do it for yourself." After speaking, he turned and returned to Link, but he did not cancel the Arhat's fury, and still maintained the golden state of 10 meters high. The corners of Link's mouth twitched. Let him go and let him go, although they are similar, they mean completely different things. Grace has lived in the quagmire of death for more than 40 years, isolated from the world, and it is normal not to understand this. The macaw was holding his mouth and grinning hard. Link's helpless face could not be seen yet. After the sarcoma monster was repaired, his expression was still furious, but Grace had a look in the eyes. The monster's hideous face instantly solidified, and he whimpered twice with a face of unwillingness, and stood aside to stop the fight. The stalemate between Link and Grace did not last long, and soon the harpy flew in with an iron cage. Grace took the iron cage and held it in her hand. Her other hand was the red liquid in the delicate bottle with the palm of her hand. If you can replace the two together, then I believe you are a master alchemist and agree to your plan. The corner of Link's mouth was slightly raised, and he took the iron cage and the red reagent bottle. A word is for sure. Inside the iron cage is a black cat infected with nuclear radiation. Its hair is messy and a bit exploded. Its eyes are blue and green, like sapphires. Baring his teeth, staring at Link warily, exuding a strong aggressiveness. "What is this?" Link asked, shaking the red reagent. Grace inserted her wings in front of her chest and waited with interest for Link's performance. "I use blood to refine a potion that stimulates frenzy and blood perception. I call it Scarlet Potion." The other harpy also brought in all kinds of equipment needed by the alchemist. In an instant, an alchemy workbench appeared in front of Link, although the sparrow was small and well equipped. The corners of Grace's mouth raised, and she nodded slightly. "Please." The macaw and Afu, who were hiding from the side, got together, and the two were making eye contact. "When does Link know alchemy? Why don't I know?" "Don't talk about you, I don't know. But the boss has always been secretive, since it is naturally true to boast about going to high cow. Who is serious about alchemy? Do you learn it?" "I don't learn it anyway. I don't learn to deal with all kinds of weird things. It's pretty scary." Link placed the iron cage on the table, rolled up his sleeves, and showed strong confidence in his gestures, as if nothing in the world could confuse him. "There are many branches of alchemy, each with specialization. The life transformation that I am good at does not need these bottles." Link propped his hands on the edge of the table, fixed his eyes on the irritable black cat in the iron cage, and directly turned on the state of the Emperor watching Chi technique, manipulating the breath to create something similar to an enchantment around the black cat. Soon the grumpy black cat was suppressed by Link, unable to make a sound. Grace put her hands in her chest, watched Link open the iron cage without any contact, took the black cat out, and couldn't help whispering, "Interesting." Using the Emperor's watching technique, Link can control objects in a small range. Although this hand is usually useless, it is still very compelling to use it occasionally. Link Kakongzia's right hand gently called, the Scarlet Potion bottle was unscrewed, and a beam of blood was suspended in the air, hanging in Link's palm. At the same time, a combination formula appears on the synthesis interface. Crazy Black Cat, white, plus Scarlet Potion, green, equals 50% fit rate. Synthesis consumes 80 points of health. Is it synthesize? Weather. Incubation time of blood cocoon, 5 minutes. After reading the synthesized information, Link frowned unchecked. The Black Cat and the Scarlet Potion only have a 50% fit rate. This reminded Link of the earliest synthetic gerbils. If they were forced to synthesize with a low fit rate, the final synthetic organisms would be uncontrollable. But Link only hesitated for a moment, and soon absorbed all the Scarlet Potion in his palm. The other hand oozes blood, and quickly wraps the Black Cat around, looking like a red mummy cat wrapped in blood. Link put the cat wrapped in blood cocoon on the table, clapped his hands and said, "Just wait 5 minutes." Grace's alchemy was learned from ancient books on military bases and her own explorations. This is the first time she has seen other alchemists take action. Link's life transformation did not use any auxiliary materials or stabilizers, but directly carried out a certain ritual to transform the Scarlet Potion into the body of the Black Cat. The cost in this process was, if Grace is not mistaken, Link sacrificed his own blood as a medium to combine the Scarlet Potion and the Black Cat. This kind of unarmed life transformation overthrew Grace's many years of cognition of alchemy life transformation, as if opening a new door. Grace's eyes were dull, and she was about to return to normal. Just relying on Link's unarmed life conversion, he can definitely be called the title of Master Alchemist. Between the two hands, the power of life is reflected, and the mystery of alchemy transformation is all in the blood. Grace completely believed what Link said now. In the distance, the macaw and Afu looked at each other, their eyes full of bewilderment. Alchemy. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. They looked forward to the alchemy for a long time, but it turned out to be Link's unique synthesis ability. Hey, I thought I could see any new hole cards, but I didn't expect it to be the same. As for whether Link's ability is a life transformation of alchemy, Macaw and Afu have no interest. In the blink of an eye for 5 minutes, the blood cocoon finally began to move. The hardened shell made a crackling sound and peeled off the surface of the body. First is the black cat's head, shaking all the blood cocoons on the head, then the limbs, and finally completely detached from the blood cocoons. If the black cat before synthesis is a very vigilant little guy with a strong desire to attack, he is sloppy. Then the synthesized black cat, with the mellow hair, has a quieter expression and movement, and sits on the table with its tail dangling on the table. Monster attributes. Name, Scarlet Meow. Quality, green. Race, cat. Attribute, blood affinity. Level, 2. Initial skill 1, brutal blood LV1, the Scarlet Meow stimulates the scarlet potion in the body and turns into a blood cat, causing 100 damage to the enemy. Initial skill 2, Scarlet Tracking, the Scarlet Meow can be identified by blood breath tracking. Evaluation, black cat, scarlet, blood, full of weird colors. After reading the data of Scarlet Meow, Link didn't see anything unusual. But his previous experience with gerbils told him that something was wrong. Leave it alone, at least it's okay to fool Grace now. Link spread his hands and signaled to Grace, the life conversion is complete. It has been reborn. You can call it Scarlet Meow. In just 5 minutes, the black cat in front of him changed visibly. Changes are not limited to hair, but also personality, which can be said to be totally different. Scarlet Meow? What ability does it have? Grace tried to stretch out her wings and motioned for the little guy to come back. But the scarlet cat on the table didn't move, glanced at Grace, and moved a few steps in the direction of Link, and then sat on the table again, declaring his sovereignty with actions. Grace's brows were not open, she was a little puzzled, but there was a hint of understanding. I brought changes to it at the expense of my blood. It has my blood flowing in its body and it has obeyed me now. After that, Link motioned Scarlet Meow to show it. Meow. Scarlet Meow tilted her head and understood Link's meaning. Arched his body on the table and jumped off the table hard. A strong scarlet aura swirled around his body, and the whole cat turned into a semi-virtuous blood cat. It feels like a blood-colored soul, full of blood. Grace felt the scarlet cat's strong willingness to attack, and sensed the energy produced by the Scarlet Potion. www.mtlnovel.com link succeeded, combining the Black Cat and the Scarlet Potion into one, and through the life transformation of alchemy, the power of an object is bestowed on a creature, and the price is blood. Grace's brain buzzed and went blank. Hearing that it was two different things from seeing it in person. Now that she saw Scarlet Meow's ability, she fully believed that Link was an alchemy master of life transformation. I think we can talk now. Grace spoke first, and suddenly felt that Link was not so disgusting. Link looked at the time and smiled, it just so happens that I have to pick up something from the underground base. Let's talk while walking? In addition, you can also take the menu just now. There are two big guys in the underground base. Grace didn't know what Link was doing with moths, but since she was on her turf, there was absolutely no reason to be afraid. Spiritual thoughts spread, special skill Banshee King is activated. Soon, hundreds of hawks gathered in the sky. In addition to the distance from the Red Land, many unintentional people staggered and various other alchemy puppets. Grace glanced at her unit with satisfaction, and the corners of her mouth raised. You are not afraid that I will suddenly regret it and kill you by the advantage of quantity. Link was as steady as an old dog, not panicking at all, and smiled softly, your desire for freedom is far better than killing me to vent my anger. Grace seemed to be poked by Link in her heart, and missed half a beat, your mouth seems to be more lethal. Link looked at all kinds of alchemy puppets, unintentional ones, and harpy, thinking about the treasure that was not taken away from the underground base this time. A tactical idea of violent soldiers gradually emerged. Monster Synthesis Master Chapter 457. Just take Grace out of the quagmire of death, and all the dichroic algae are under his control, and then it is not what he wants to do? These alchemy puppets, unintentional zombies, and harpies of Grace can all become pet objects synthesized in the future. In addition, puppets and unintentional people have thick skin and thick flesh. If they can multiply on a large scale, they are definitely copper walls and iron walls for charging. The silver marching ants, the three treasures of security, the mouse swarm controlled by the treasure hunter, the blue flies, the steppe wolves, and the dragon god's insect flurry, coupled with the army of puppets and the unintentional, Link's violent soldiers flow human tactics. The last piece of the puzzle is basically completed. Link said as he walked, telling Grace about the underground base. As a researcher in Dragonhawk defending Team 5, you should know the effects of Cat's Crystal. Grace and Link walked side by side, behind them were the mighty puppets and the unintentional army, which looked spectacular. Of course I know that this crater was chosen as a secret research base because of the rich resources of Cat's crystals. This is a kind of crystal with stable molecular structure and inert nature, making it an excellent storage container. Lace suddenly realized, so the last time you came, was it to find the Cat's crystal? Link nodded, yes, but instead of using it to install solutions, but to develop new energy sources. Its stable state can condense violent reactions and make energy output smoothly. Everyone came to the gate of the underground base. This was the exit where everyone fled last time. The creatures in the underground base are not easy to deal with. Many of the weird and mutant creatures are good materials for studying alchemy. Link didn't lie, whether it was the last enchanted giant chapter or it can be sprayed after the explosion. Jumping spiders splashing corrosive liquids, and even connective tissue with its own life assembly characteristics, all carry a strange dark aura. Whether it is extraction or experimentation, they are rare good materials for alchemy. Speaking of alchemy, Grace's eyes suddenly lit up. She was invited to go to the underground base with Link on this trip. Once she came here for more than 40 years, because there was a dominant in the underground base. The two sides also had small-scale frictions, and then the roads were blocked. I haven't seen it before, and this time I have resolved my long-standing doubts before leaving. Secondly, she decided to follow Link to leave the quagmire of death. In Grace's eyes, Link is an alchemy master proficient in life transformation, but also the supreme commander of Shadow under the new pattern. The last time she came to the quagmire of death, she felt that her peers had a more unfathomable existence. There was no shortage of capable people and strangers around such people. Grace ordered the army to advance into the underground base, which also meant to show her own strength. On the basis of these 2 points, there is actually a chance to obtain additional dark alchemy materials, which is really a surprise. Came to the door of the ruins of the underground base. Grace motioned to Link to stop. Let them clear the way. The puppets, the unintentional, and the harpy are the army that Grace has once again immersed in the 40 years. No matter what terrorist creatures are in the underground base, she believes that her army can sweep. Only the strong are worthy of respect, and the weak can only be submissive. Link raised his hand to interrupt Grace, don't worry, let the local master lead us the way first. Link glanced back at Afu. Afu ran up and walked into the entrance of the underground base. A green coffin exuding soul energy appeared behind him. The coffin palace slowly opened, and the pure energy form of Troy came out. The energy state was more solid, the green data energy and the blue soul energy were intertwined, and the details were fully revealed. Troy saw Grace the harpy at a glance, her face was vaguely familiar. Are you, Jin Grace? A special researcher in the 5 groups of the Biological Research Division of the Dragon Eagle Defense Bureau, a mind power person, and a former Confederate member of the law. The system records that you were punching in the field on the day of the nuclear attack on the base. Biological experiment, your appearance really hasn't changed at all. Troy has been trapped in the underground base for 42 years. There are information and photos of all underground base members in the center, and he knows it well. Grace looked at the person made of pure energy, her eyebrows frowned, and the other party had a complete grasp of her own information. In addition to the local master that Link said, he should be the person whom Link said in his letter. One of the victims of that nuclear attack. Excuse me, you are. Although Grace knew that he was also a member of the Dragon Eagle Defense Bureau, but now like this, he can't recognize who it is. What's more, there are thousands of people in the Security Bureau, and not everyone knows him. I am Troy. I am proficient in biology and electrical engineering. I belong to the Special Research Section of the Lunjiang Security Bureau and I am a special researcher. What happened more than 40 years ago is too long. Grace frowned and tried to search for relevant information from her few memories. After a while, I vaguely remembered the number one person. I remember that the second group produced a research topic that shocked the entire base at that time, which seemed to be called Bionerve System Electrification Simulation. Troy nodded quickly, yes, this is my research topic. After the two said, they were taken aback, and immediately laughed. Both of them were survivors of the Dragon Eagle Security Bureau. The two occupied the underground base in the quagmire of death, and the grey mist. They had been wary of each other for decades. Now that they know each other, they have heard each other's names. They are neighbors, enemies, colleagues, and comrades in arms. Link interrupted the complicated atmosphere at the right time and said, Troy, please enter the center again, turn on the power for us, plan to guide the cat's crystal. In addition, the enchanted giant chapter that attacked us last time, and some others monster, please help determine the location coordinates. Troy nodded slightly, as you wish. As soon as the voice fell, Troy's body ionized, entered the nearby underground base line, and returned to the control center at an extremely fast speed through the line. After a few breaths, there was a thumping sound of electrification in the underground base, and the channel lights lit up and flashed in turn, leading the way for everyone. Grace waved her legion to march, and the puppets, the unintentional and the harpy entered the underground base in an orderly manner. Seeing the old acquaintance with her own eyes, Grace's trust in Link couldn't help but a little higher. Link dared to bring Troy back and let him move freely, which showed that both sides had trusted each other. Link stood aside, looking at Grace's huge army, and estimated the number. The three armies of Grace's puppets, unintentional ones, and harpies, the number of which is a few thousand. The number of harpy is about 200 to 300, and the quality levels are not uniform. Half of the hawks look normal, but the other part of the hawks is accompanied by various problems such as obesity and deformity. Can you imagine a fat man with a big belly with wings and struggling to fly? There are also cyclops, which lack arms and legs. At first glance, because not many eagles survived the nuclear explosion, these problematic harpies were all products of alchemy corpses, so there were many inherent injuries. There are nearly 1,000 unintentional people, and most of them are underground base staff who died or were infected in the nuclear explosion. After being infected by the virus, Grace was transformed into an alchemy creature. Finally, there is a puppet, which is a body completely recast from corrupted flesh and blood. It does not have any soul in itself. It has only a hollow body. It is completely driven by the Creator. Among them, the human form accounts for a part, and the various beast mutant creatures in the death quagmire account for part. Thousands, all controlled by Grace's spiritual mind, the veritable king of banshees. With so many troops, migration is a big problem, and resettlement is also a big problem. Putting Grace in shadow will definitely cause trouble. Not to mention that Grace has not been loyal to him yet. Even after allegiance, these thousands of terrifying creatures will cause panic in the city. After all, not everyone can accept such deformed monsters, even under Link's pressure, they will be regarded as monsters in the bottom of my heart. Lynx thought about going, but the only place that felt good was the Weeping Valley below the Howling Castle. Build a villa in the valley to contain Grace's Legion creations. It not only guarantees the specifications, but also guarantees that the other party is under his nose. At the same time, the power of the entire Weeping Valley was once again improved. At the same time, it can also attract some talented players to study alchemy and draw a fleece from them. Steppenwolves can be rented, as can the puppet army and the unintentional. Harpy has both physical and magical aggressiveness, and can also fly, effectively solving the problem of the weakness of Link's air force. When Grace's legions all entered the underground base, Link and Grace entered together. As the research backbone of the 5 groups of the Dragon Eagle Defense Bureau, Grace is very familiar with Cat's Crystal. Under the instructions of Troy Lights, she spiritually manipulates the puppet army and conducts a carpet excavation search in the experimental area and the logistics area. Link and Grace were walking at the very end, and Grace suddenly asked, "I have thousands of legions under my hand. How do you plan to settle after you get out of the quagmire of death?" As soon as Link thought of a plan, Grace asked questions at the right time. "Since you are a researcher here, you must know the Cry Valley of Shadow's southern gate." Grace nodded. "Isn't the Weeping Valley the place of the Desert Royal family? There is also a Howling Castle in the valley, which is the palace of one of the princes." "Yes, but after the day of liquidation, the prince failed to escape from the nuclear pollution attack and died, and it became a land of no masters. Later, the Free Federation forces joined forces to fight against cults and became desert extremist organizations and sand forces. After the demarcation line was dilapidated, it was only used by the passing businessmen to stay. After I became the commander of Shadow, I transformed the Weeping Valley into a mansion. Because of the peculiarities of the puppet army, in order to cause unnecessary riots, I planned to build a manor in the Weeping Valley. At that time, all your puppets, unintentional ones, and harpies can be placed in the manor." Grace's eagle-like sharp eyes suddenly changed to smiling eyes. "I didn't expect to be trapped in the quagmire of death for 40 years, and become a nobleman as soon as I go out. Manor, that is not something ordinary people can own." Grace was fairly satisfied with Link's arrangement, although she was also under surveillance in the Weeping Valley. However, this arrangement obviously still takes into account the specific circumstances. In addition, Grace does not like to be disturbed by outsiders talking. The secluded place is convenient for various alchemy experiments, which is really good. "What's the price?" Grace's expression was suddenly serious again, and some messy eyebrow feathers were full of wildness. Behind Link's hands, after serious consideration, he said, "First of all, after taking you out to give you freedom, you have to thank me. There is a powerful supernaturalist and alchemist. Secondly, your strength and the puppet army under your command. Considering the extreme forces that I plan to sweep the desert early next year, it is naturally good to have more help. In addition, I am also an alchemist, and I am very interested in your puppet creatures, so I can have a few research and try the direction of life transformation. Finally, the most critical point is that I am going to transform the Death Quagmire into a transfer station for Shadow's northward entry. At the same time, there are still many things left over from the old age in the underground base. I am going to arrange for manual digging and cleaning, plus transformation. If you don't contact you and let you stay here, it will affect and change my next plan." After listening to Link's explanation, Grace's hanging heart finally fell. Although she couldn't see Link's thoughts with spirit shock and despite the mind, he said so frankly that it was to expand power and study alchemy, and even revealed her future plans. Lace's impression of Link has changed a lot. "I will investigate after I go out. If what you say is true, then there is nothing wrong with doing things for you," Grace said proudly. The form of the waste Saturn is no longer more than 40 years ago. After the liquidation of the world was hit, and social forms and consciousness changed. At the same time, various supernatural abilities and strange phenomena frequently appeared. The rule of law society in people's minds became wasteland. Law. These Link's letters are scattered about. Although Grace has a puppet army, the changes in the outside world are greater than the death quagmire. Depending on the level of her need for the grey mist, she will either continue to be imprisoned in the quagmire of death, or follow Link out to see the new world. After all, it is necessary to seek refuge in a force. From the current situation, Link has obviously won her favor. www.mtlnovel.com. After following me to the Crying Valley this time, you will see everything with your own eyes, a retelling from me, the real world that exists outside. The corner of Link's mouth raised. Just now the system reminded Grace that her friendliness had increased, and the wave stabilized. By the way, I must declare in advance that sunflowers are not allowed to appear in and around my manor. Link stared at Grace's eagle eye carefully, confirmed that she was not joking, and nodded seriously. It was incredible in my heart. Without mentioning the destructive power of dichromatic algae and psychedelic vines, how could Grace just mention the harmless sunflowers that are harmless to humans and animals? Could it be that the sunflowers left an indelible impression on Grace? Link left a secret in his heart, ready to inquire in the future. The two continued to walk inside, and some corrosive slime splashing on the wall began to appear in the corridor, which was a trace of the battle between the puppet army and the jumping spider. Soon, when arriving at the underground subway bridge, densely packed tentacles sprang out from under the iron bridge, pulling on the edge of the iron bridge and gradually poking out of the abyss. The demonized giant chapter appears again. Magic chapter. Race, variation software. Level, LV35, leader. Life value. Energy value. Skills, limb regeneration, mind whisper, scabbard strike, poisonous mist spray, body camouflage, other unknown. Specialty, dark fusion. Evaluation, the accidental product after radiation mutation and unstable chemical reaction has incredible possibilities. Grace spread her wings and her eyes shined. Sure enough, as you said, there are dark creatures here. This is good research material. Grace's war-inspiring eyes and sharp tiger teeth showed that she did not want Link to take action. This battle will be an excellent stage for her to show her strength. Monster Synthesis Master Chapter 458. Let me remind you, don't attack the tentacles of the demonized octopus. You won't hurt it. Don't ask me how I know. Link shrugged, giving Grace a friendly reminder. A level 35 leader. Since Grace wanted to use this monster to show Link her strength, Link could only watch from the side. In his heart, he strongly condemned Grace's kill-stealing behavior. A level 35 leader would give at least 50,000 experience points. The demonized giant octopus had a variety of skills. There were spiritual-type mind murmurs, physical-type scabbard strikes, poisonous mist spits, and support-type limb regeneration and body disguise. There were also some hidden skills that couldn't be seen. Grace's skills weren't weak either. She had lethal shrieks, spiritual attacks, and mind-absorbing skills that targeted mental attacks. She also had flying feathers and feather blades that targeted physical attacks. She could also control an army of puppets. Lin Kai crossed his arms in front of his chest, completely like a spectator. At first, Grace didn't fight in person. Instead, she sent puppets, Heartless, and Harpies to command the army. Grace raised her slender long legs and placed her claws on the guardrail. She had the demeanor of a female boss. Link's mouth twitched, hesitating if he should remind Grace that the dress was too short. However, Link's attention was quickly drawn to the situation on the battlefield. Grace's command was right. The puppets and Heartless couldn't feel pain and their armor was extremely high. When the tentacles of the octopuses came crashing down, they would only be smashed to the ground and barely cause any damage. In addition to Link's warning, Grace did not send the main forces to deal with the tentacles of the octopuses. Instead, she focused the Harpy's firepower on the octopus's brain. The demonized octopus's health points decreased rapidly, and it used all kinds of skills on Grace's army. However, the puppets and Heartless were completely under Grace's control. They didn't have a brain, so all mental damage was completely ineffective. In addition, they had no biological activity at all, so the venom sprayed by the demonized octopus was ineffective against them. It was an extremely powerful boss, but Grace's abilities and the army's effects were completely counter to it, so the demonized giant octopus couldn't exert any power. In the end, when the demonized octopus wanted to escape, Grace personally took action. She casually lured a grey fog into the abyss to strengthen her own strength and finally killed the demonized octopus. On the other side, the team that Grace had arranged to search for Kaz crystals had also returned. Each of them had more or less a crystal in their hands, and the number of crystals they found was even more than when Link had first visited. Grace pulled out a scalpel used for alchemy. She couldn't suppress the excitement on her face. It's not realistic to transport all of them out since they're so big. Why don't we dissect them now and take out the key parts? There's no need, really, said Link. There's no need. Fu, you can keep this thing first, and it won't be too late to slowly dissect it when we get to Shadu. Grace glanced at Fatty Black, who was standing beside her, and said in disbelief, him. Fu's body didn't look as big as the eagle's body, and the spiritual artifact coffin that could store souls didn't look like it could hold such a huge creature. Fu didn't talk so much nonsense. Boss had ordered him to do the work, so he was very quick. Walking to the demonized giant octopus, Fu took off the enhancement backpack on his back, grabbed a tentacle, and began to stuff it in. The harpies next to him were dumbfounded. Such a small backpack actually wanted to store such a huge demonized octopus. Either I'm crazy, or this fatty is crazy. Hey, brother, do you mind giving me a hand? Fu revealed 2 rows of shiny teeth, and her smile was very infectious. The harpies beside him were stunned for a moment. Although they didn't believe that Fu could stuff the entire demonized giant octopus in, they were still affected by Fu's friendliness and subconsciously reached out to help. The entire tentacle of the demonized giant octopus was stuffed in, and the backpack did not expand or swell at all. After observing this detail, Grace's expression became a little more doubtful and grave. However, as she watched the demonized octopus being slowly stuffed into the backpack, as well as the backpack that didn't change in appearance, she felt that things weren't as simple as they seemed. This ordinary-looking backpack seemed to contain a trace of space law. The capacity of its appearance was not consistent with its actual capacity. Wang! The brain of the demonized giant octopus was completely stuffed into the enhanced backpack, making a crisp sound like a bubble bursting. Fu closed the enhanced backpack and grinned at the harpy who was helping him. Thank you, guys. Other than the brainless puppet army and the heartless, as well as Link, who already knew the inside story, everyone else was dumbfounded. The 20 to 30 meter long demonized giant octopus was actually stuffed into a small backpack in front of him. It was really shocking. Fu patted his bag and turned to report to Link with a smile. Boss, everything's done. Link smiled and nodded. He was very satisfied with Fu. Fu's unconcerned attitude was exactly what he wanted. He had casually placed the demonized octopus's corpse into his bag and easily recaptured the scene when Grace had commanded her army to kill the demonized octopus. Who would still remember that Grace killed the demonized giant octopus? His mind would definitely be filled with the image of Fu stuffing an enormous octopus into an unremarkable little backpack. Don't worry, said Link, pointing to the side, pack up all the Kaz crystals and the jumping spider crickets we caught just now. Fu buried his head and started packing again. Everyone's attention was focused on Fu, wanting to see how many things this unassuming backpack could hold. In the end, no one got an answer, because after putting everything in, Fu's expression was relaxed and happy, looking like he had more than enough. After everyone left the underground base, Grace dismissed the puppet army. This time, Link had come in a transport helicopter, so it couldn't carry too many people. Grace had only brought 2 Harpies' trusted aides to inspect the Weeping Valley first. Once things had settled down, she would arrange for people to relocate over 1,000 army members. Without your control, these puppets and Heartless will not go berserk, right? Link asked on the plane. I gave them an order to rest and wait for orders before I left, Grace said calmly. If there's no follow-up order, they'll remain in the same state and won't run around. I'm not bragging, but I'm known for my generosity. You won't be able to find a bigger force like me in this world, and they can't provide what you need. Now that you've come out, I'm afraid you don't want to go back. Grace crossed her legs and sized up Link with great interest. Her slender long legs were particularly eye-catching. Of course, it would be even better if the claws under her ankles could be blocked. I'm quite curious. Have you always been like this, always boasting without a change in your expression? The macaw nodded frantically. Fu was also nodding his head crazily, but when he saw his boss shaking his head, he immediately followed suit and shook his head instead. Link shrugged helplessly. There's no point in me saying anything more. You're already out anyway. You'll know that I'm not lying after you get used to the situation. Grace pouted and suddenly turned to the side. She stared at the soldiers in the cabin and smiled flirtatiously. Is it good? As he spoke, his pupils gradually dilated, which was a precursor to the soul extraction. The soldier immediately felt as if he had fallen into an abyss. His spirit had been firmly attracted by Grace, and he nodded in a daze. Just as Grace was about to ask the next question, Link suddenly pulled the soldier over and patted the back of his head. The soldier suddenly felt his hands and feet turn cold. A cold chill went straight to his head, and he shivered all over. Wake up! This guy is more than enough to be your grandmother. Don't think too much. The soldier lowered his head in shame, a sense of guilt surging in his heart. Grandma was still at the age of a half-human harpy. The moral constraints made the soldier feel guilty and blamed himself for having such a terrible thought. However, deep in his heart, the feather raiment on his chest was half covered, and the deep scar on his chest was clearly visible. He also had a pair of beautiful long legs, white and long. It was hard not to think. Grace had wanted to tease the soldier, but Link had ruined her plans. She was unhappy. She wasn't really angry. On the contrary, there was an element of a little girl deliberately acting coquettishly. Even Grace herself didn't realize that after coming out of the death quagmire, an invisible chain had been lifted from her body. Her entire mood had become somewhat jubilant. The mountains and the desert were as usual, making Grace's memory stop at 42 years ago. But soon, the plane flew over Shandu. Looking at the city that was completely different from what she remembered, Grace felt as if she had arrived in a new world. When the helicopter arrived at the Weeping Valley, Grace's mouth was slightly open, but she couldn't speak. A gigantic tree that was nearly 100 meters tall stood in the Weeping Valley. Its crown covered the sky, and its trunk was thick and powerful. Ordinary trees would not be able to grow to this size. Under the crown of the tree, there was a glittering crystal, which sprinkled on the dark ground in a series, forming a waterfall like the Milky Way. Not far from the divine tree, there was a city made purely of trees. It was thriving and had an endless stream of people coming and going. The plane quickly landed on the tarmac in the center of Windhowl Castle Garden. Link, King Kong, the macaw, and a Fu were the first to get down, followed by Grace and 2 of the harpies' trusted aides. They were wearing half-covered gas masks around their mouths and noses, which had been added with breathing-sustaining dual-colored algae. Grace had yet to recover from her shock. The Weeping Valley had changed so much that even the palace of the Desert Prince had changed so much that she could not recognize it. The strong contrast between memory and reality gave her a feeling of separation that she didn't belong to this era. I think you must have a lot of questions to answer now. I've arranged rooms for the 3 of you. There's a computer network in the room, so you can first understand the history of the past 40 years in detail. Starting tomorrow, your manor in the Weeping Valley will start construction. You can supervise and check the progress. The corpse of the demonized octopus is too big, so I'll take care of it for now. I'll take it out and divide it up after the manor is built. Link brought Grace to the guest room on the 3rd floor, giving her some time to adjust and accept the situation. It was a completely different situation to promise to get out of the swamp of death. Link didn't want to disturb her. After all, there was still time. Link heaved a sigh of relief after taking care of a general. He didn't have any conflicts with Grace, so as long as they developed steadily, he would have a high chance of successfully recruiting Grace. Link told Afu to go to the underground research center and give all the Kate's crystals to Helen when he returned. Then, Link immediately issued a new mission to the Military Intelligence Division, which was to find a suitable place to build a manor in the Weeping Valley. As soon as the mission was issued, it immediately received enthusiastic responses from the players. The players were all guessing that the manor at the bottom of the valley would be the starting point of the next wave. When Link had established Shenmue City, it had become popular. Many of the top 10 guilds had gotten villas and lived in them. Red Dragon Dagger's construction mission, let Lang Feng change his profession to Special Forces, his profession's specialty made everyone envious. The establishment of the Gobi Oasis had also benefited a large number of players in terms of experience. They had successfully widened the distance between them and the majority of the players. At the same time, the rewards they received from killing the players had also made them a lot of money. The top 10 guilds that were on good terms with Link had also received new energy weapons. The damage and coolness of these weapons were much better than the firearms currently on the market. According to the players, they had touched the door to technological weapons, and all the players were drooling. Therefore, every move that Link made would attract the attention of countless players. They would start digging up the secrets behind this yet-to-be manor. In 2 days, Grace had learned about the current situation on Wasteland Planet through the internet. According to Grace, the relationship between forces was far more complicated and direct than in the old era when the laws of the Wasteland were rampant. In the old era, the Federation of Farnite and the Van Kamate were 2 superpowers. However, after the nuclear war, the situation on the Wasteland was like a piece of land that had been bombed by a nuclear bomb. The Federation of Day was divided into 3 cities, Day, Dragon City, and Sand City. Because they had the same background, they formed the current Free Federation. Because of their complicated religion, the Fank religion was in a state of disunity. They walked around the planet in the form of a religion. In addition to the connection between these 2 behemoths of the old era, many new ideas and forces were born, and they gained a lot of fans under the laws of the Wasteland. The machinery faith was one of the biggest forces. After learning about the new history for 42 years, as well as looking into the manor's construction situation and ideas, Grace decided to stay in the Weeping Valley and officially serve Link. Grace's initial loyalty was 85 points. In order to live up to this initial loyalty, Link added 2 points of surprise to the completed manor. First, he would plant the dicolor algae outside the manor, and the dense grey fog would completely simulate the death quagmire, so that Grace didn't have to wear a breathing mask all day long. It would also isolate her from the players, and they wouldn't disturb her from time to time. Second, the manor will be named after Grace, Grace Manor. As soon as the message was sent out, all the players started to reply with an O. They understood that he was hiding a mistress in a golden house. After that, the military trucks brought construction materials to the death quagmire, and then transported the puppet army and Heartless to the Weeping Valley. After half a month of transportation, Grace's army had arrived at the manor. The manor was officially in use, and all the defense lines outside Weeping Valley were withdrawn. The entire manor was covered in grey fog. Many players tried to enter the manor, but none of them could withstand the grey fog. They fell to the ground halfway through. No one could find the manor through the fog. Gradually, the legendary Grace Manor came to have another name, Misty Manor. Monster Synthesis Master Chapter 459. Chapter 459, Recombination. Grace Manor in the Weeping Valley was completely surrounded by toxic grey fog. Players tried various methods, but I was unable to isolate the impact of the grey fog. The name of Misty Manor is widely spread among players. The forum is also discussing what secrets are hidden in this grand manor built by the players. Of course there is everything. Some people think that Link's hiding in the golden house of the manor is inconvenient to show to others, so the grey fog method is used to isolate ordinary people and play an insurance role. There are also players who feel that there must be eggs or rewards in the manor, and this grey fog is used to test players. Some players even stated on the forum that when they tried to explore in the grey mist, they vaguely saw the shadows of flying monsters and zombies. However, in the end, this news was angered by netizens, thinking that he was gaining attention. Even the next player himself wondered if it was an illusion. Link looked at the posts and analysis of these players on the forum, and the corners of his mouth were almost reaching the roots of his ears. He really had everything to guess. What impressed Link was the analysis of a player named Suyat. According to the area of the manor and the degree of grey fog blocking, Suyat guessed that there might be a mysterious army hidden inside. The examples cited by Suyat are also very reasonable. Nyoxi Sacred Tree, Gobi Oasis, Sacred Wood City Research Center and the main control room of the large defensive force field surround the Howling Fortress. Now the Misty Manor below the valley has a construction capacity to meet the living scale of thousands of people, which must be of no ulterior motive. Moreover, Link can make great efforts in civil engineering, and there must be a strong NPC among them. Suyi's analysis is almost the closest thing to the truth among all of them. This also made Link pay more attention to this player, only to discover that he was the player who broke the news about the Red Dragon Spine Camp mission last time. It looks like I got a baby from the forum again. Link wrote down Suyi's name, and next time he has a task, he will be brought along for an inspection. The thing about Grace came to an end. The name of the Misty Manor by the players was very compelling, and it is estimated that even the owner Grace would soon feel that the Misty Manor sounds better. The demonized giant chapter was also divided up, and Link got the puppet, the unintentional and the harpy from Grace as he wished. Both the puppet and the unintentional are the products of infection with the puppet virus. The biggest difference between them is that the puppet is a walking corpse pieced together with broken limbs, and then Grace is injected with the puppet virus to manipulate it, while the unintentional is a basically healthy dead person who is controlled by the puppet virus. Link and Grace had an exchange about the puppet virus. Grace said that this was a byproduct of her alchemy ritual to get rid of the grey mist. Later, after research, it was found that this virus can manipulate dead body tissues. After that failed alchemy ritual, Grace realized that she had gained with the ability to manipulate this puppet virus. In addition to the harpy, the puppets and the unintentional also joined the ranks of Grace's army and became the main force. After listening to Grace's statement, Link probably understood the ins and outs of the matter. As a traverser with 6 years of game experience, although the details of the plot are not clear, he still knows the main plot of each version. Link has always thought that 3.0 Doomsday Echoes was triggered almost after the end of the 2.0 plot, but he did not expect that the Curse Cult would start looking for spokespersons on various planets so early. Grace must have inadvertently resonated with the Cursed Sect during the alchemy ritual, and was selected as the spokesperson of the Waste Saturn by the Cursed Sect. It's just that Grace did not appear in the vision of the Waste Saturn player, and she didn't know what happened. The puppet virus is just an ordinary virus used by the Curse Sect to attract believers and expand, but in the hands of some malicious people, it can still exert terrifying energy. Link thought for a moment, and said to himself, the puppet virus is relatively inferior. It stands to reason that the power of the Zerg bloodline can cover the virus. Immediately began to try to synthesize. Puppets and unintentional people are creatures dominated by puppet viruses, which can be roughly regarded as zombies. The advantage is that it has high resistance to beating and defense, no pain, but the disadvantage is slow action. Both are 15 ordinary creatures with green quality. Link glanced at the material on the cabinet in his secret room and fell into thought. The puppets and the unintentional, as the front row troops in his violent stream of ideas, already have the characteristics of resistance to beatings, resistance to attacks, immunity to mental attacks, and high resistance to magical objects. They are not too suitable for the front row. But since it is a violent troop flow, it must conform to another characteristic quantitative advantage. Only mass production in a short period of time can be counted as a real riot. Following this request, Link glanced at all the materials, and finally focused on one item. Self-reproductive cell culture medium, blue quality. This level clearance Moro's building, get the excellent evaluation reward materials. In order to cultivate connective tissue, Link tried a little bit, the effect is remarkable. Now it's time to come in handy. If the two fit well, it should be able to stimulate the rapid reproduction of necrotic cells of puppets and unintentional people after use. But it is hard to say whether it has strong self-healing ability like the sarcoma monster, or it can divide like a cell after synthesis. Puppet, green, plus self-reproductive cell culture medium, blue, equals. The fit rate is 30%. Unintentional, green, plus self-reproductive cell culture medium, blue, equals. The fit rate is 90%. Seeing the two fit rates, Link was a little silly. Both the puppet and the unintentional are the products of the combination of the puppet virus. The only difference is that the whole body and the fragments are put together. It can be said that they are a female compatriot. The result is such a big difference in synthesis. I thought that both creatures would be synthesized by reproductive cells, but now it seems that they can only be synthesized by unintentional ones. Synthesis consumes 200 points of life. Is it synthesize? Whether. Incubation time of blood cocoon, 1 hour. Link absorbed the breeding cell culture medium, and the blood cocoon that came out of the other hand surrounded the unintentional like a blood-colored mummy. After finishing the synthesis of the unintentional, Link looked at the silly puppet, and suddenly felt his head became big. His own thoughts were rejected in a straightforward manner, which embarrassed Link, who had always claimed to have fully grasped the law of synthesis. Link took a long sigh and rejoiced, fortunately, it was synthesized in a secret room. I am embarrassed and others can't see it. This wave, as stable as an old dog. Just after Link finished speaking, a voice suddenly appeared behind him. What did you hide in the secret room today? The macaw's gossip sound suddenly appeared, and Link clenched all over and asked without looking back, why did you come in? The macaw touched the scarlet meow in his arms. This little guy is new, and Grace didn't take it with him when she left. Since this guy knew that I could understand him in the castle, he stuck to me. Just now. Scarlet Meow smelled the blood in the secret room, so I came in to see what was going on. I didn't expect you to hide here to synthesize it. Speaking of being in your own house, you still want to sneak in. Link's mouth twitched, and he never expected Scarlet Meow to betray him. However, it seems that things are not simple when you think about it. You must know that the secret room is a triple enclosed space. Once the door is closed, there is no air hole. The macaw and the scarlet cat are outside. How do you smell blood? Link quickly found the problem and looked back at the scarlet meow in the arms of the macaw. Did it tell you that you smelled blood? You came here? Link asked. The macaw nodded altogether, and righteously said, yeah, if it wasn't for Scarlet Meow that I smelled blood in the secret room, I'm doing nothing to go around the secret room. Do you think I'm the kind of bird that's alright to mess around with the secret room? Link was speechless. If you press the macaw, who is the silly bird who comes into the secret room and uses the gene stock solution as wine and borrows wine to pour his sorrows? After showing off her skills to Grace, the Scarlet Meow was left behind by Link. After all, such a small animal does not have the ability to fight on the battlefield, and its skills are relatively tasteless. Link also didn't care about the low fit rate. After all, he couldn't tell when this little guy would fly away like a gerbil. But today I saw that Scarlet Meow has something. Scarlet Tracking's passiveness is not based on smell, but is similar to perception, similar to the metal induction of treasure hunters. Link's eyes lit up and thought of Scarlet Meow's good home. Scarlet Meow felt the host's unusual look, and she shrank into the macaw's arms, a little scared. The macaw is like a nanny, with wings gently soothing the poor Scarlet Meow, while looking at the puppet and the corpse of the harpy beside him. Are you synthesizing Grace's puppet army? Link nodded, having been seen. What else was hiding? The macaw hugged the scarlet cat and sat on one side obediently. You continue to synthesize, I will look at it, and there will be no sound. At the end of this episode, Link refocused his attention and considered the synthesis of the puppet. Since his idea was vetoed by Worm's Nest, then let Worm's Nest choose the composition. Because the puppet is of green quality, Link tried all the green and blue materials in turn, and finally found the most suitable synthetic material for the puppet by enumeration, which was also the last thing Link had expected. Puppet, green, plus magic silk cloth, blue, equals. The fit rate is 100%. Imbued with magic silk cloth, one of the random materials that Link obtained after completing the sea-level task recovering the lost land by the water transport, because of its magical properties, has not been able to find a suitable matching creature for synthesis, and it has been stored until now. Unexpectedly, today finally let it find a suitable synthetic organism. 100% fit, it must be a blue quality pet. Synthesis consumes 300 points of life, is it synthesize? Weather. Incubation time of blood cocoon, 2 hours. Link did not hesitate to choose synthesis. After solving the old problem of the puppet, Link focused on the last corpse of the synthetic creature harpy. The reason why he got a harpy corpse was mainly because Grace was still uneasy about Link's life conversion. Each harpy was made and brought to life by her using alchemy. For Grace, these are her children. Only if Link successfully synthesizes the dead harpy corpse, Grace will send Link to live harpy. The harpy corpse that Grace gave to Link was a deformed harpy. Because of the principle of equivalent exchange of alchemy formulas, the lifespan of a harpy with a little deformity by nature will not be very long. Judging from the harpy's bones, it should have been more than 10 years since death. It's just that the corpse has been preserved to the greatest extent under the anaerobic environment of death quagmire. Harpy, green quality, level 20 creature. Link observed the corpse. The arms on the wings were slender, the muscles had no obvious signs of heavy objects, and there were no obvious calluses and wear marks on the wing claws. It was certain that this eagle was good at magic before his life, not throwing. Warrior with spear. Link continued to search for suitable materials, and when thinking about the synthesis, an image suddenly jumped out of his mind, and then quickly focused his eyes on the same object, the Pharaoh's scepter. The Pharaoh's scepter and the statue of Anubis, the of Death, were the second time Link came out of the Platinum Hotel. They are also early materials and have been displayed to this day. Now it happens to come in handy. Harpy, green, plus Pharaoh's scepter, blue, equals. The fit rate is 120%. The matching rate of 120% proves that Link's conjecture is completely correct. Link's eyes lit up. If this is the case, then there is another bondage. Combination consumes 400 points of health. Is it to be combined? Weather. Incubation time of blood cocoon, 2.5 hours. Without talking about selective synthesis, Link couldn't help but look forward to whether the result 2.5 hours later would be consistent with what he had in mind. While waiting for the blood cocoon to hatch, Link was not idle either. Originally, he was thinking about contacting Simon afterwards about the Scarlet Meow. Now there is one thing in synthesis, which requires his help. Lao Jin, you go to send a message, let Simon come to see me tonight. The macaw picked up Scarlet Meow and turned his head back and forth one step at a time, and left. Remember to leave a door for me later. I have to see it through the cocoon after that. He ran away. After a while, the macaw hugged Scarlet Meow and appeared in the secret room again. Okay, I have notified Simon, and he will come on time at 8 o'clock in the evening. Simon, the first kin formed by Link, and now the leader of the Hidden League. www.mtlnovel.com. Link is looking for him this time. First, he is going to hand Scarlet Meow to Simon. For the Scarlet Cat, which is sensitive to blood detection, it is really appropriate to cooperate with the blood family. By the way, Link also wants Simon to help test the Scarlet Cat's instability. In addition, Link has a second purpose. According to legend, the kinsmen and werewolves are natural enemies. Link wants to get a werewolf back through Simon's hand to form a strong local characteristic bond with the harpy. Time flew fast, and soon an hour passed from the first synthetic creature. The blood cocoons of the unintentional began to tremble slightly, showing signs of loosening. The dry hard blood cocoon clicked, and then cracks appeared, one by one fell to the ground. The blood cocoon in the eye socket of the unintentional fell on the ground, revealing a pair of grey solemn eyes. Monster attributes. Name: Undead. Quality: Dark green. Race: Zombie. Attribute: Dark affinity. Level: 15. Initial skill 1, Bite LV1, bite the target, cause 100 damage. If the target is bitten to death, it will become the same kind of undead. Initial skill 2, Self-healing. The undead has a strong self-healing ability, any tissue damage in the body can heal itself. Initial skill 3, Hardening. The undead's defense power is amazing, extremely resistant to physics, magic, and abilities. Initial skill 4, Plague Carrier. The undead is inactive and will not react with any virus. It can be called an excellent carrier for plague to spread. Evaluation: a terrifying creature of the Undead Legion, an absolutely notorious existence in the eyes of Wei Guangzheng. Monster Synthesis Master Chapter 460. The blood cocoon on the undead completely fell off, and the whole person completely appeared in front of Link. Above the shriveled muscles is tight skin, which fits tightly to the muscles without any gaps in between. It's like beef in a vacuum bag that has been evacuated from air. All the lines are clearly visible. The heart of the unintentional is empty, and it has been repaired and filled at this moment. But the repair is only the ribs, muscles, and skin. Because the unintentional does not have a heart, there is no way to make a heart out of thin air even after self-healing. Link is very satisfied with the undead in front of him. The dark green quality synthetic creatures, 1 active skill and 3 passive skills, perfectly solve Link's worries. Bite skill: to put it bluntly, as long as you control the undead to make a final strike, the scale of the undead will become larger and larger. The macaw stared at the living dead in front of him, his wings kept licking the cat, and his mouth exclaimed, "I'll drop a good deed. This thing looks a bit bullish, it looks like a pharaoh's burial guard." After Link explained to the macaw, the metal jaw of the macaw widened and almost dislocated. Material resistance to magic and resistance are both high, because there is no brain and is not afraid of mental attacks, and the body is damaged and can heal itself. Apart from this wrinkled and disgusting appearance, it is simply a perfect body. The macaw kept its mouth, its wings scratched the fat around its waist, and looked at the undead with envious eyes. The undead have no nervous system and no pain. At the same time, because of the lack of nervous system mobilization, the hardened muscles give people a feeling of stiffness and rust when they act, and their actions are still slow. But these are all old problems, and the threat posed by other arms is still unabated. The macaw looked at Link with a pitiful look. "Link, I think I can't keep up with the times. I also need an evolution." Without changing his face, Link walked to the macaw, patted it on the shoulder, and said, "You are already a mature pet, and you need to learn to evolve by yourself. Look at King Kong, it's not a blue quality at the beginning. Some time ago after the Dharma, I finally realized the true meaning and mystery on the battlefield. Now it is an epic quality pet. Good guy." The macaw is the most social and anthropomorphic one of all pets except Afu and others. Link can't easily recombine it. In the unlikely event that there are 2 shortcomings, he will lose a capable man. As for the self-study of evolution, it is a waste of effort at best, but at least there will be no sequelae. The macaw was silent for a moment. I realized that if you want to evolve, you must have a persevering mind. The evolution supported by foreign objects is like a castle in the sky. It is illusory and will fall at the first touch. Only relying on the improvement of your own strength is the right way. Before Link said the second half of his sentence, the macaw hugged the scarlet meow. Looking at the closed door, Link said to himself, actually, choosing the right direction is more important than working hard. It's a pity that the macaw is destined to not hear it. Link sighed helplessly and continued to focus on synthesis. The undead stood silently, without any orders from Link, like a sculpture. While waiting, Link took the time to flip through the forums of the other two novice planets, and he really saw some familiar names from previous lives. The first Magister player on the planet Pandora, the Flying Dragon, the well-known players on the planet Victoria, EQ in arrears and IQ out of service, have already gained a certain reputation, and they have joined the Spirit of Fulhu, Difeng Tianyu and Ahuan. On the contrary, the main focus of these two planets is on the players, while the focus of the Waste Saturn forum is on Link. Some players even summed up a Link quotations, which recorded what Link said in public, as well as the reposts of forum players, all of which were collected, and some future trends and clues were collected from it. Link scratched his head, a little dumbfounded. According to the level of devilishness of this group of players, a game of Lin Shui can be played. He just said some words casually, and the result was still analyzed by others, and it was called the standard answer for reading comprehension. Link's awkward big toe could dig out 3 rooms and 1 hall, and finally realized the original author's feeling. Click! The crisp sound of broken blood cocoons drew Link's attention back to the secret room. At this time the puppet has completed the final incubation and began to emerge from the cocoon. When the blood cocoon fell, the first thing that caught the eye was not the puppet, but the white cloth wrapped around the puppet. The blue quality enchanted silk cloth exudes a faint gleam, and the color is gradually restrained and dim as the blood cocoon peels off. When the blood cocoon peeled off completely, revealing the complete appearance of the puppet, Link opened his mouth slightly. The puppet in front of him was entwined with enchanted silk cloth up and down, only showing the black eye sockets, which looked terrifying. The appearance is completely bandaged, mummified, and it looks a little more flexible than the undead. Monster attributes. Name, Mummy. Quality, Blue. Race, Undead. Attribute, Undead affinity. Level, 15. Initial skill 1, Bandage Wrapping LV3, the mummy controls 5 enemies near the bandage wrapping, causing 150 damage to the enemy, restraining it for 5 seconds, and dragging it to the front, which can be used 3 times a day. Initial skill 2, Death of the Dead LV2, the mummy activates the aura of the dead, causing 4 points/second damage to hostile creatures within 20 meters in diameter for 5 minutes. Initial skill 3, Transformation Ritual LV1, mummies can convert 1 complete body into low-level mummies every day. Initial skill 4, Magic Body, mummy's enchanted silk cloth has strong magic power, 10% probability to rebound magic attacks. Evaluation, on this day, the dead thousands of years ago came back to the desert. The combination of puppets and enchanted silk cloth directly synthesizes mummies with the ability to control group injuries, and the mummy's magic body protection skill is simply god level. With a 10% probability of rebounding magical attacks, which complements the physical defense of the undead. Each has its own strengths. Of course, the most critical ability is the transformation ritual, which can transform a corpse into a low-level mummy every day. With this skill, the scale of mummies can continue to expand and develop. The mummy's transformation ritual made Link's violent soldier's flow plan extremely smooth. Converting his own person into a mummy, Link couldn't do such a thing. However, with the help of players, as long as the rewards are in place, Mechanic City will dare to break through, let alone a few corpses. What's more, the puppets and unintentional people under Grace Harpy are good materials for transformation. Half an hour later, the last synthetic creature came out of the blood cocoon, and Link's mouth was already grinning to the base of his ears. Monster attributes. Name, Hawk Guardian. Quality, Blue. Race, Undead. Attribute, Undead Affinity. Level, 20. Initial Skill 1, Horus Fury LV4, transformed into Horus. Health, Attack Power, Defense Power increased by 100%, lasts 40 minutes, cooling time is 6 days. Initial Skill 2, Eye of Horus LV3, restore 30% of the health for an ally, get rid of all negative states, cooldown time is 3 days. Initial Skill 3, Pharaoh's Scepter LV2, hold the Pharaoh's Scepter, temporarily resurrect 4 corpses and fight for you until the end of the battle. Initial Skill 4, Destroying Double Pupils, the eyes of the Guardian of the Eagle can detect some low-level traps, camouflage, and stealth. Evaluation, Guardian of the Supreme Power of the Desert, symbol of theocratic power. Sure enough, as I thought. Link clenched his fists in excitement. When the fit between the Harpy's corpse and the Pharaoh's scepter reached 120%, he thought of Horus, the most iconic guardian of the ancient desert kingship. In ancient desert myths, Horus represents the patron saint of the pharaoh, the symbol of kingship, and the of vengeance. The image is an eagle-headed human body, a crown on his head, a linen skirt around his waist, holding a voscane and a symbol of life. Deity. Now the image of the eagle guardian is exactly the same, with the scepter, only the crown and the linen skirt. Even the ability is not much different from Horus. Link had already smelled a hint of consolidating desert rule in advance. The Gale Desert is vast and vast. In addition to the mechanical god cult and the Wasteland Gang, there are many tribes, large and small. The influence of the ancient desert myth has been passed down to this day, and the desert ruins can be preserved completely, which is also due to the awe of the people. Link now has a Horus, as well as mummies, undead, and cobalt beetles, as if they could restore ancient desert myths. When these true gods appeared in various parts of the desert, and the people called for miracles, Link could also use the remnants of the desert myth to successfully take over the entire desert. When these people became believers, it was more convenient for Link to rule. Link walked out of the secret room with 3 new pets and arranged a new residence for them. In Link's view, both the mummy and the eagle guard are pets with great potential. Looking at the pet information in the system interface, Link's impulse became stronger and stronger. The undead, the mummies, the cobalt beetle, the eagle guardian, the Afu, and even the thing to be synthesized. These are all products with elements of ancient pharaoh mythology. I don't know what will happen if these are formed into bonds. Effect. When Link thought about it, it was already night. As the dusk deepened, the Howling Castle also welcomed visitors. The new leader of the Hidden League, Simon. Simon wore a black dress and a bowler hat on his head, looking like an elegant old nobleman. "Boss, what's the matter with you asking me to come?" Simon took off his top hat and was in the dust. Link sat on the sofa in the living room, reaching out to play with Scarlet Meow. "There are 2 main things for calling you here this time." Link slapped the Scarlet Cat, then held it up with both hands and motioned for it to pass. Scarlet Meow felt the strong blood in Simon's body and was not timid, and raised his tail and jumped to Simon in 3 or 2 steps. Simon is also looking at the cat, with soft black hair and 2 jewel-like eyes of different colors. Link pointed to the Scarlet Meow. "This cat will be raised by you for the time being. It can be transformed into a blood cat, and it can also be tracked through blood, just like a treasure hunter that perceives metal." Simon suddenly widened his eyes. "Really? The metal perception of the treasure hunter can definitely be regarded as a must, everyone in the Lin Consortium knows. Right now, this cat can track blood, which is definitely of great use to Simon, who is a blood clan. This cat is called Scarlet Meow, which is more suitable for your kinship situation, so it will be temporarily taken care of by you. In addition, there is one more thing. Your kinship and werewolf are feuds, right? you can find a way to activate the secret alliance to engage in one. Werewolves, either alive or dead. Simon looked distressed. Since I took over the position of Earl Dracula and checked the internal information of the Hidden League, I did find some information about werewolves. However, since the aliens began to enforce the law at night, they have basically been there are no werewolves infested anymore. But if the boss wants you, then I will find it back by all my means. Link nodded slightly, he understood Simon's difficulty. Since the Hidden League surrendered, and Link became the commander of Shadow, many of the monsters, ghosts, and snakes who were active in Shadow disappeared without a trace. In addition, Link arranged for the players to clean up the Sand City spies, and the players spontaneously enforce the law at night, which greatly improved the environment in Sand City. If the sand in the past was synonymous with chaos, now the sand can be called order. Simon accepted the task, and then said, "Boss, can the business of the Dragon City branch of the Monster Security Company be handled by our secret alliance?" Seeing Link's suspicion, Simon hurriedly said, "That's it. In March, the blood families of the Free Federation will gather in Dragon City for a meeting. Dracula belongs to a veteran blood family that has lived for hundreds of years. I will be killed this time. If a Viscount takes over, I am afraid it will be a grand feast. I think they will find opportunities to attack me. So this time I want to take over the business of the Dragon City branch and fight them well." Lin Kuei suddenly remembered that Simon had said this some time ago. The blood races in Dragon City, who think they are relatives of the blood race, have never put other families in the eyes. This time you go with the branch, backed by the Monster Security Company. There is the official stepwolf of Dragon City. Cooperative business, you can rest assured to fight with them. I believe that you can use your strength to deal with those earls and princes. Although Simon's current title is an earl, but the blood race, age, and blood have always been seniority. Dracula was the leader of the blood clan in the old days, and ruled the Shadow blood clan for hundreds of years. Now that he died, he was replaced by a young earl. Those old blood clan families naturally did not take it seriously, thinking that the Shadow blood clan had lost its heritage, and looked down upon Simon. Although Simon rarely makes shots www.mtlnovel.com, his strength is second only to a few epic ranks among Link's pets. Looking at the entire Lin family group, his strength can also be in the forefront. It's just because of the characteristics of the blood family, it is simple to show up and rarely shows up, so the reputation is not obvious. In Link's synthesis interface, Simon has a dark blue quality, and like King Kong, he can evolve to an epic level by himself. Let alone the Dragon City blood clan, it is not a problem to unify the abandoned Saturn blood clan in the future. With Link's affirmative reply, Simon's sickly white cheeks were filled with a strange red, and then he was holding Scarlet Meow and thanked him and left. Just as Link sent Simon away on his front foot, the worm screamed on his back foot. It was a communication from Penguin at Moros building. "Boss, this is Penny. The things you ordered last time have been completed, and now this Dragon City surrender agent wants to see you." Link remembered that this was an excellent task activated after completing the Shadow Cheetah Alliance intelligence organization abandoning the secret to the Ming. The last time Link heard Penny talk about this, he also arranged some inspection missions. Unexpectedly, the intelligence personnel completed all of them. Now it is time to meet as required.